Would you consider this a family film?
In fact, Dalton, I would, because I have...
Really? Very interesting, considering
I do not say fuck in this script.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2025, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Welcome to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we try to resurrect Universal's failed universe of monster movies, one pitch at a time. I am your leadoff hitter host, Dylan Roth.
And I am your reclusive author host, Dalton DeShane.
And today we are taking on a pretty interesting challenge for the Dark Universe.
You are.
I've saved the worst for last, Dalton.
Worst? You think this is your worst pitch?
No, I don't think it's my worst.
Dylan has come with his worst pitch. You heard it here first.
This is going to be an interesting challenge. Okay, so for those
Hey, pitch.
Get it? You could say this is our first real pitch of the show. So a while back, Dalton, like a year and a half ago now, we came up...
First of all, actually, are you comfortable? Because this is our first recording in our new studio.
The new set is so cozy.
We are
so
in a
comfy.
brand new apartment. We are
got
in couches. I'm on a couch. You're on a chair.
I'm in a nice, comfy chair. These are things that used to be the furnishings of Dalton's living room.
Yes. I have a cat on my lap, which actually isn't good because she's going to screw things up, but we don't have a door on the studio currently.
Yeah, we've been talking about investing in a door.
But as you'll see in the social clips, we've got some cool lighting. We have a nice little set here, and we are more comfortable. We're not just talking at each other across a narrow strip of desk, as we have been for like 3 years straight.
We're both able to kind of like sit back in a chair. We're reading our stuff off of tablets. I don't know. I feel like we've leveled up.
We have leveled up. We're putting the Patron money to good use.
Yes, our show that people can't see has never looked better.
Yes, exactly. For you, it's exactly the same.
Yes, but who knows? You know what? We're building towards a future.
Yes, maybe there will be more visual things.
We would love to make
soon.
more visual things.
But yes, let's get back to why on earth we are gathered here to do a Field of Dreams pitch for the Dark Universe.
So way back when we just finished Phase 2, we had just released the Dark Legion, The Mummy's Hand, into the world, and we did our traditional phase launching episode for Phase 3, which we then thought was the last phase of the Death's Door saga and would comprise everything up till now. We ultimately decided that Phase 3 should become Phases 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So we came up with a whole slate then. Then we added to it a couple times. And so I knew that at the time I had to pick 2 solo pitches for the status quo we were going to set up at the end of Death's Door.
That's right.
And we wanted them to be things that were didn't have to necessarily have a dramatic impact on our status quo. These were going to be one-off stories, little one-shots, right? And so for one of them, I wanted to do Night of the Living Dead because from the beginning of the show, I was thinking it might be cool to do Night of the Living Dead since it is public domain and we could use it in the Dark Universe. And for the other one, I didn't have anything that immediately came to mind. You had actually suggested maybe I do Carnival of Souls.
Yes, that's true.
Which we ended up doing on a recent episode of the bonus pod as a studio mandate. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton for $5 a month. You can listen to that episode. It's pretty fun. But at the time, Dalton, you had announced to me privately that your intention was to do one really dark one and one kind of silly one.
Oh, yeah. I did not do that.
You planned to do The Exorcist as a very dark one. And you, up until you started writing it, you planned for the old dark house to be kind of a romp.
Yes.
And so I thought maybe I would want to do the same thing, where I'd pick one really dark one, Night of the Living Dead, and I'd pick one to be funny or weird. And so the idea I came up with was to scroll through, as so many of our guests do, and just look at the Universal Library and see what is the weirdest movie nonsense pick for the Dark Universe that's in the Universal Library that I could come up with an idea, like a kernel of an idea while I'm looking at it, just so I'm not going in totally blind. And the thing that I went past was Field of Dreams. And I picked it for a couple of reasons. One, because it seems like, what the fuck is Field of Dreams doing here? Which was part of the appeal, right?
And just for the listener, because I was confused about this, Field of Dreams is different than Angels in the Outfield.
Yes, two completely different films.
I don't know about completely, but they are different
They're
films.
two different films that have to do with baseball and the supernatural.
Yes.
They're both family films.
Yes.
And
one is Universal, one is Disney.
They're both very silly, but in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea was I would take Field of Dreams and I would do my horror comedy, basically building a horror type story out of the central fantasy conceit of Field of Dreams that we'll talk about in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But that it could be kind of a spoof. It would be kind of goofy. In fact, it would be really goofy. So it would be my off the wall, my zany fucking Joe Dante critter, Gremlins 2 shit, right? Then what happened was, Dalton, you did no comedy pitches.
No, but both of my pitches were funnier than my normal pitches.
I don't know if Exorcist is funnier than Love Never Dies.
Okay, that's fair.
Or The Invisible Man, Dalton.
Oh, right. I have done...
The poster's hanging over your head.
I have done some actual explicit comedies.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they were sillier than my darker...
No.
There were jokes. There were jokes. The Exorcist opened with a Sabrina Carpenter joke.
You always have jokes. The Exorcist is a comedy in no one's eyes.
Okay, that's fair.
The devil himself would find it grim. Then, as we were working, I came up with the idea of Mystery Men, and that became my horror action comedy movie.
Yes.
And that was the script that I wrote immediately before I started work on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I started outlining, because I'd done a fair amount of pre-writing actually over the course of the past year and a half, because I had all this time to kind of like expand on my premise, come up with specific ideas, come up with bits, really. Mm-hmm. And I just had a little file on my phone where I just jotted them down. But I found that right after doing Mystery Men, the story that I had come up with of doing this sort of goofy, almost parody of Field of Dreams had held absolutely none of my interest. I was not invested in it at all, and I know that just means it's not going to be good. If a story does not mean anything to you, it's not going to mean anything to anybody. So I revisited the original text, and by original text I mean the movie. I did not read the book because I don't know how. And then I had to kind of pivot because I watched it. I came up with not a completely new idea, but a very different approach to my original idea, and a completely different tone for the movie. Because as I'm sure we're about to get into, Dalton, Field of Dreams is an extremely sincere film.
Look, this is not the bonus pod. I am not going to go long on my thoughts on the original film. I did watch it last night. Mm-hmm. My thoughts are on Letterboxd if you really want to see. Not for me.
Not for you.
Not very for you much at all. Not for me. I extremely didn't. I already like yours better. So you are luckily, sort of like with The Exorcist, you came in expecting not to like it. So the bar was lower. I already don't like Field of Dreams, so it's a low bar to clear. I already like yours better. I'm very confident I will like yours better. And so we'll see, but I'm not going to go into it.
Sure. But with that shining endorsement, I'm going to encourage our listeners to see the film Field of Dreams, because it will definitely enhance the experience of listening to this pitch.
And if nothing else, it's so impressive to see a script written by a dog come to life on the big screen. It's really crazy. You'll feel proud of the dog for sure. We're here, we're people, and we're writing scripts every 2 months. We can't get anything on the screen, and yet somehow a Labradoodle got a film made in Hollywood, and I think that's beautiful.
All right, let me go a little bit into what this movie is. Okay,
yes, a very brief pitch of what the original Field of Dreams.
It'll be very brief because as much as I say, hey, you should maybe watch the movie, my script is completely self-contained and includes any information that you might want to know from Field of Dreams.
That's great.
Field of Dreams is a 1989 baseball / family film / fantasy film. Kevin Costner plays a guy named Ray Kinsella who has daddy issues. His dad wanted to be a great baseball player. He didn't make it. Tried to get his son to follow in his footsteps. His son said, "Fuck you, I'm going to Berkeley." And met an Iowa farm girl named Annie, and they went to Iowa and they bought a farm. And while he's there, he hears a voice tell him, "If you build it, he will come." Which somehow convinces him that what he needs to do is to plow under his cornfield and build a nice baseball diamond, a nice baseball field. Because if it does, that means that the ghost of the legendary disgraced baseball player Shoeless Joe Jackson will walk out of that cornfield and get to play baseball again. Shoeless Joe shows up, and it becomes like an to me, an interesting sort of story about like how somebody is managing like this, getting messages from the beyond and trying to make all these dreams come true, ultimately through the power of baseball. It has an ending that chokes me up, and it's a very sweet movie, but it is the kind of thing where, much like with some of the Star Trek movies we talk about on the bonus pod, Dalton, you're jumping into something without having any of the nostalgic attachment to it is like educational for me. As like, we don't have exactly the same taste in things. There are things that we'll see when it's new and not agree, right? But the things that you say about Field of Dreams in your scathing letterbox review, give it 1.5 star, are not things that like fundamentally like I disagree with. They're simply things that don't bother me.
Yeah.
That might just be a matter of like, I have been watching this movie since I was 6 years old and I like it.
That's fair. This is my first time seeing it. I also have zero attachment to baseball as a concept. I think on the bonus pod, maybe our next episode, we can go deep on Field of Dreams and our opposing views on it.
Maybe.
But yes.
If we don't get into it too much here. I mean
no, because I want to focus on your script.
Sure, but what I'm hoping is that you'll get through our script and you'll be like, you know what? Here are the things that I didn't like about the original script that I like in yours, Dylan.
Yes.
Or maybe you'll find completely different things to like. Hopefully you won't hate it.
I don't think I will. The fans were also a little bit bewildered by this one. We, of course, put out our usual call for expectations. Let me get them here.
But that was part of the fun, right? It's like, I want to do something like, what the fuck is he going to do with Field of Dreams?
Of course, yes. And there were some themes that came through in people's predictions. Several people thought that you will repurpose the iconic phrase, if you build it, he will come. But this time with a sinister, perhaps threatening undertone. This was predicted by Film School Snob on Instagram and also the real Nick Morton on Discord, which a lot of people agreed with. Many people think that there will be some sort of chase through a cornfield. This was echoed by Joan Palmer on Instagram, Jonah Pishkin on Instagram, and Cadel on the Discord. Many ideas for kills with various baseball accoutrements, including, of course, baseball bats to the head, as predicted by Parzival9919 on Instagram, Josh TB1513 on Instagram, Jack Milks on Instagram, and Reed on Discord, who also thought that maybe there would be a Quicksilver-infused bat to defeat some demons.
No, we are traditional about baseball. No Quicksilver-infused bats.
Yes, it's not regulation.
No cork, no aluminum, no Quicksilver.
Yeah. McAllister Fox on Blue Sky thinks that there will be a kill with a spiked cleat, which would be pretty gnarly. And Booze and Comics on Instagram thinks that you might use the baseball diamond as a summoning circle for demons. Cool idea. Some other ideas on how you might incorporate the game of baseball into our dark universe. Many people thought that this was going to be very Space Jam-esque, as said by Great Nine Rejects on Instagram, Low Seal on Instagram, who also thinks that we will have Rat Hands as our Bill Murray. Nightmare Matt on Discord and Camp Dracula on Instagram, who also predicted there will be a practice scene set to Supermassive Black Hole in a shout out to Twilight, I believe that is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hands down my favorite scene in a Twilight movie.
Twilight, however, though, not Dark Universe eligible, so we can't be too on the nose there. Andy Am23 on Instagram thinks that you will revive the Dark Legion members just to play baseball. And then they have to go back to being dead. They just get to come back, be a baseball team, and that's it. And Vatican Beerus on Discord thinks that the color commentary will be provided by the Collector / Crypt Keeper, which we have incorporated into our universe before.
Okay. So many of these ideas would be super fun and would fit in great with my original conception of this script.
Yes, I think everyone, including me, can maybe only conceive of this as a horror comedy, and so I think everyone's gonna be taken surprise maybe by the more serious tone.
I fucking surprised myself. Yeah. So if we're done with predictions,
not quite yet.
Okay.
I got two quick ones left.
Sure.
Alex on the Discord said that similar to the way I structured The Exorcist around the Station of the Cross, you would structure this around the 9 innings.
I thought about it.
Yeah,
Did not fit, but I did because when I was working on this right after we did The Exorcist, the thought that occurred to me, wouldn't it be cute to do it? Not this movie. Good idea though.
They thought 9 innings with a 7th inning stretch. And Frodoman76 on Discord thought that you might choose James Mangold as a director, which I did think. I mean, it depends on the tone, but I was like, I could absolutely see Dylan picking James Mangold.
See, now I like that idea because I'll tell you what, I came up with the tone of this pretty early on in writing, but I didn't finally settle on a director till the very last minute.
Yeah.
And I did not think of James Mangold.
You kind of want to switch to James Mangold?
Well, let me tell you who I have and what I'm going for, because there are reasons why it would be a good pick, and there's reasons why who I have is very qualified, I think. The director who I have chosen is David Lowery. And the reason why I've picked David Lowery, famous for doing The Green Knight, for instance, is because he's also done a number of live action adaptations of like sort of the sort of 70s Disney movies. So he's done kids movies and he's done like weird, eerie stuff. And I was trying to find somebody who I think could nail the tone that I'm going for, which is honestly a little bit of kind of a, not Fear Street the movies, but like the book, like almost like a Goosebumpsy feel. A little bit more grown up than that.
He did the Pete's Dragon adaptation,
and he did the one that is Peter Pan
and Wendy,
which went directly to streaming and nobody saw it.
I had never even heard of it until this moment.
Yeah, I did not end up watching it. I feel bad because I do like David Lowery, but it was like the kind of thing where they just dropped it on Disney with no promotion, and I just completely forgot about it. So I actually went back and forth between him and the guy who did like Detective Pikachu in the Goosebumps movie. And you know what? I kind of feel like the guy that might be a better fit for the script that I have would be James fucking Mangold.
Well, why don't we put it on hold and we can talk about it as we hear the script?
Because he's like Mr. Americana, you know?
If he did Indiana Jones. He can do kooky stuff in a way that kind of can still be grounded in something. And you liked the Bob Dylan movie, right?
I did. And he's he's a sentimental guy. And this film's going to be sentimental.
Would you consider this a family film?
In fact, Dalton, I would, because I have deliberately directed attention and the audiences and managed the stakes in such a way that I think that Indiana Jones was actually one of my reference points in my head for how the violence would look. I think because this is going to be a movie set during our apocalypse, and it's going to have the undead, and it's going to have lots of like terrors that have been set up in our universe. But I did kind of want it to be a hard PG or soft PG-13.
Very interesting, considering
I do not say fuck in this script.
That's very interesting. People were talking on the Discord about whether they wanted this one to be a reprieve from The Exorcist or keep the darker tone. And a lot of people were saying they were enjoying the dark tone of the Hell on Earth scripts. It's going to be interesting to see something that plays it a little more safe with this awful world we've set up.
This is a film that a script, imaginary movie that I feel like that feels different to me than a lot of the other stuff. This one was really hard. I wrote myself a really ridiculous check to cash.
Yeah.
And then I felt compelled to take it in a completely different direction than I'd initially planned. And I gotta be honest, like I'm curious to see how it reads because I've read through it a couple times myself. I've made a lot of changes. It has mutated plenty of times. I let it sit for most of this week because I finished it. We were going to record it earlier. We got COVID. Bought me another week. And I come into this one with, I think, a little less confidence than I have with previous scripts. And
you seem very confident over text because you had gotten so much time to revise.
I feel like what I have is doing the job of things. I think what the difference is for this is that for the most part, I write movies that I think I would really, really get into.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first one of these that we've done on the show that feels like I'm doing a work for hire job for myself.
Mm.
And I have had to really push to find, like, it was like the third revision where I really found what I cared about in the story. Because originally I wasn't really worried about it because it was just going to be a good time. But I already did that. I just did that.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up meaning something to me anyway. I found, as always, with revision, with time, with work, I find the thing that I discover that the movie is about, and then I rewrite towards it. I've done that here. But it's so different from the other stuff that I've done that, like, I don't I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And it's also one where I think Dalton, because it's so much less personal to me, I think that if you were to tear it apart, it wouldn't piss me off the way, we're not going to end up in a fight, I think, like we had with Night of the Living Dead.
Okay, well, then I'm going to go brutal on your ass.
You should do...
no, I'm just kidding.
There's no way that you're going to hate this more than you hated Field of Dreams.
Well, yeah, I know. I like it more.
That's the only bar that I need to clear.
And it's interesting you say you didn't know what it was about, because my only prediction is that you made it. I mean, didn't even make it, because Field of Dreams is also about fatherhood.
It's always about dads. Yes.
Yeah. This is just going to be about being a dad.
I mean, it was posting this in the Discord. It's like, wow, it's like every script that I've written since Phase 2 has had something to do with dads. What could have happened with me in that span of time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the things that I decided I want to do after the rewatch was I wanted to try and see if I could tap into the things that resonate to that movie with me, which is kind of dealing a little bit with faith and with forgiveness and with family, which was largely nothing to do with my original idea. I'll tell you about when we get to the end.
All right. Well, we should definitely get into it. We're running long already.
Yep.
Let's kick it off.
Submitted for the approval of the Universal Studios Board of Directors, this is Dylan Roth's Field of Nightmares. After the opening Dark Universe logos, we fade in from black to an old photograph of a man in his late 30s sitting on the veranda of an old farmhouse, wearing a vintage Brooklyn Dodgers cap and a faraway look in his eyes. His hairstyle and the quality of the photograph indicate that it was taken in the late 1980s. This is Ray Kinsella, as portrayed by Kevin Costner in the 1989 film Field of Dreams. We hear a woman's voice.
My father's name was Ray Kinsella. It's an Irish name.
Crossfade to a black and white photo of Ray as a boy in a baseball uniform, leaning against a bat and standing beside his father, John. Neither looks particularly happy.
He was born in Brooklyn in 1949. His mother died when he was young, and he was raised alone by his father, John, in the game he loved, baseball. John played catcher in the minors before Ray was born, and he hoped Ray would follow in his footsteps.
Crossfade to a photo of Ray in his late teens on the colorful campus of UC Berkeley in the late 1960s, smiling and embracing a young woman in a sundress with a flower in her hair, Annie, played by Amy Madigan.
But the two of them never got along, so when Ray was 18, he flew off to UC Berkeley, where he met Annie Alden, my mother. Ray and Annie had the kind of love you read about.
Cut to some old VHS footage of an outdoor wedding ceremony in the country. Ray and Annie beam with joy. At Annie's side, her family fails to hide their disapproval. At Ray's side, there is no one.
In 1974, Annie brought the worldly New Yorker Ray home to her stiff conservative family in Iowa. They got married and started a life there. They bought a farm where I would spend the best years of my childhood.
Crossfade to video of Ray, Annie, and their precocious 7-year-old daughter, Karen, as seen in Field of Dreams, portrayed by the young Gabby Hoffman in her first feature film. This is outtake footage from that film, repurposed to look like home video.
That's me, Karen, spelled with an I in case you didn't know my parents were hippies. They raised me on the things they loved, the Beatles, books, and baseball. I loved books and the Beatles right away. I didn't put much thought into baseball, not until Dad heard the voice.
Cut to Ray wandering his cornfield, transfixed by some strange presence that we, the viewer, can't see or hear.
When I was 5, something happened to my father that none of his doctors have ever been able to explain. The otherwise rational 38-year-old with no history of mental illness suddenly became convinced that if he cut down his cornfield and put up a baseball diamond, that the ghost of shoeless Joe Jackson, his late father's personal hero, would come back to life and play ball there.
Cut to Karen sitting in Ray's lap as he drives his tractor through the cornfield, mowing down a healthy crop. They both look excited about it. Cut to Annie on the porch, watching, a wistful gleam in her eye.
Despite the risks to our family finances, my mother decided to indulge him. She saw it as some kind of adventure, and so did I.
Cut to the field when it's finished. Perfect regulation ballpark, surrounded by tall floodlights, a few steel bleachers, and at the end of the outfield, the rest of the farm's surviving corn stalks. Ray sits on the back porch of the farmhouse, overlooking the field, waiting for something to happen.
But spring passed by, and then another, and shoeless Joe never came.
Pull back to find Karen, a few years older, looking out the window onto the porch at her distant father. She's exhausted, hollowed out. She turns away, and we follow her through the house and see that everything's been packed up in cardboard boxes.
Eventually, Mom and I gave up waiting. but Dad never did.
Nearby, Annie wipes a tear from her eye and walks a box of her belongings towards the front door. A bearded man in a suit drapes an arm over her shoulder and comforts her. This is her brother, Mark Alden, portrayed here by a digitally de-aged Timothy Busfield. Mark calls back to Karen. Karen, I'm sorry, buddy. It's time.
Coming, Uncle Mark.
Karen takes one last look through the window at her dad, then picks up a box and sullenly follows behind her mother and uncle. We cut back to Ray, looking out at his field, empty inside.
By the time he died, I hadn't spoken to my father in nearly 20 years. And until I went home to bury him, I'd never done a crazy thing in my whole life.
Fade to black. Title: Field of Nightmares.
Okay. You have retconned Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
So that he was crazy.
Well, we've retconned Field of Dreams so that Shoeless Joe never shows up.
Shoeless Joe never shows up. It's the kind of thing where, who knows, maybe that will upset fans of Field of Dreams. I'm not one of them.
No, I know.
So I'm on board.
Well, because here's where I ended up coming up with a sort of different idea for what I wanted to do. The idea for what I wanted to do totally changed after I rewatched the movie and realized that little Karen is played by Gabby Hoffman. Gabby Hoffman's a working actor today. I saw her, I think, in like Come On, Come On. She has like indie movies and stuff. And it made me kind of reassess who the lead of my movie was going to be. It made me realize that I have the opportunity to do the sort of weird Lego sequel thing that I often decry, but to do it in a really off-kilter way, because the rules of our universe do not allow for a happy story like Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
You can't, there's a benevolent God in that movie. There's ghosts, which we've never allowed.
Yeah.
And it has a happy ending, and the supernatural stuff is all nice. Nothing bad happens as a consequence of supernatural stuff in that movie. It's all good stuff.
So if it's canon, it can't have happened.
It can't have happened. But that actually helped me to find what my story was about. So
is Gabby Hoffman still playing Karen?
She's still playing Karen.
Okay. Cool. We can move on.
Let's get to Act 1. Act 1. We fade in on a rental car driving down a quiet rural road between two cornfields. There's no one else in sight. No other cars, certainly no pedestrians. Just a large black bird following above the car, unworthy of notice. Behind the wheel of the rental car, we find Karen, all grown up now, in her early 40s, but still played by Gabby Hoffman. She looks out ahead, overwhelmed by a stew of emotions. The man in the passenger seat rests a hand on her thigh, and she takes one hand off the wheel to meet it there and hold it tight. The man, who looks at her with loving concern, is her husband, Simon Gill, portrayed by Stephen Yeun. He doesn't say anything, but Karen peeks over at him and offers him a sad smile, acknowledging his support. In the back seat, their 8-year-old son, Kyle, sits watching baseball highlights on his phone. He pokes his head up to look out the window at rows and rows and rows of corn. He's never seen anything like it before. In the distance, looming high over a faraway field, Kyle sees a set of metal towers topped by floodlights, just like the ones we saw over Ray Kinsella's field in the prologue. It's morning, and the lights aren't lit, but the sunlight still reflects brightly off the steel. Kyle leans forward to speak to his mother. He points at the lights on the horizon.
Is that it?
Karen looks over briefly, takes note, then looks back at the road ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Kyle returns to his seat, his eyes still locked on the lights, imagining the park underneath them. Up front, Karen squeezes Simon's hand.
Can we see a game while we're here? Nobody uses that field except some beer leagues, honey. What about a Royals game? It's only a few hours out, and they're at home this weekend. I checked.
Karen's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Simon notices this, then turns back to address Kyle. We're not here for baseball, okay, Kyle? Kyle's eyes flick over to Karen, and he picks up on her mood. Embarrassed, he retreats back onto his phone. Eventually, the car enters a residential neighborhood that's conspicuously ritzier than the surroundings and joins a few other cars in the driveway of a big, welcoming house. Cut to Karen, Simon, and Kyle at the house's front door. It opens, revealing Annie Kinsella, now in her 60s, still played by Amy Madigan. She wears a black button-down shirt tucked into black jeans. She's clearly been going through it, but her eyes light up to see her daughter and grandson. She embraces Karen, squeezing her tight. Welcome home, Karen. Then she looks down at Kyle. And holy crap, Kyle, did you grow a foot since I last saw you?
Hey, Grandma.
Simon nudges Kyle, a reminder.
Sorry for your loss.
Thanks, kiddo. She hugs her grandson, then looks up at Simon. Thanks for coming, Simon. Come on in, everyone's here. Everyone, as it turns out, refers to about 10 people who have gathered in the living room of the house to memorialize Ray Kinsella, born 1949, died 2025. Karen wanders around the room, and it suddenly becomes obvious that she is not dressed in black like everyone else, but in a tan pantsuit. There are photos of Ray set up on each table or shelf, nearly all of them taken before he built the ballpark. There's only one of Ray in his old age, a contemporary photo of Kevin Costner, not looking so hot, sipping a beer on the bleachers of his baseball field.
A promotional still from Yellowstone.
Yeah, probably. Karen stops when she sees one taken of Ray and her 6-year-old self playing catch on the Kinsella property. She's wearing a big, cheeky smile, and he a look of calm and peace. Here I've cut a scene in which Karen wanders away from the memorial to chat with her Uncle Mark, still played by Timothy Busfield, the man who helped raise her after her parents split and her mentor in the real estate world. She tells him about a sale she recently closed, in which she talked a couple into a place without the finished basement they had their hearts set on. They also acknowledge that the real estate business, like everything else, is pretty scary in a world that's seen a demon invasion, and that the Empire State Building literally vanished for a few minutes yesterday. This scene will be fully restored in the director's cut version on Patreon. If you happen to be a patron, there's a scene, little dialogue you can listen to if you log on there today. Cut to a bit later in the backyard. Annie stands on a nice stone patio. The rest of the mourners, including Karen, Simon, Kyle, and Mark, are all seated. Annie is in the middle of giving a eulogy. She cradles a ceramic urn in her arms. The Beatles' Hey Jude plays on a Bluetooth speaker. This was his favorite song. I think everyone here knows the story, but in case anybody doesn't, Paul McCartney wrote this song to console little Julian Lennon after his parents split up. Ray never knew his mother, and he and his dad were always at odds. Struck by a sudden wave of emotion, Annie takes a moment. People always ask me why I never divorced Ray, even after we'd been separated for decades. Truth is, I never really fell out of love with him, even during his illness. He was always Ray, right until the end. Karen squirms in her seat, struggling to keep still. She squeezes Simon's hand. I'd still visit him there at the ballpark now and then, on his birthday or our anniversary. And each time, for a while, he'd be just like he was. We'd catch up. He'd be funny and charming like always. He could talk about anything, usually baseball, and make it sound like the most romantic thing in the world. He seemed just like himself right up to the moment you tried to convince him to come home. It broke my heart every time I left there without him. I missed him every day we were apart, and I'll miss him until the day I die. Karen grits her teeth. Cut to a bit later. The nondescript Warners from outside the family pull their cars out of the driveway. Karen sits alone on a glider on the patio, looking out over the vast, well-manicured lawn behind Uncle Mark's house. Annie approaches, holding the urn. Mind if I sit?
Sure.
Annie takes a seat next to Karen on the glider. Is Kyle doing okay?
He's fine. It's a little strange for him. Honestly, when I asked him if he wanted to come out here with me, I expected him to say no. What kid from Brooklyn wants to fly out to Iowa to bury a grandfather he's never met?
Kids will surprise you sometimes.
Yeah, they will.
I have a favor to ask you. Or, I guess your dad does. Annie indicates the urn.
Don't tell me you're hearing voices now.
Before he died, your father told me what he wanted done with his ashes. He told me he wanted you to pour them out along the chalk of the third baseline.
Why? So he'll still be there when Shoeless Joe shows up?
Annie breaks eye contact, looks down at the urn. That's a yes. Karen stands up and starts pacing furiously. From the screen door between the patio and the house, Kyle peers out to watch the argument between his mother and grandmother. It was important to him.
Yeah, that's right, and I wasn't. We weren't. We both ranked lower on his priorities than a dead, disgraced baseball player.
Karen storms towards the door. Kyle ducks inside to avoid being seen. Annie sits alone on the glider with Ray's ashes. After a moment, Kyle steps outside and sits next to her. Hi.
Hi, Grandma.
I'm sorry you had to see that.
What's so important about Shoeless Joe Jackson?
Your mom never told you?
I've seen his name on Wikipedia. I know he played left field for the White Sox like 100 years ago and had a .350 career batting average.
.356. Still the third highest in history. But you don't know the story? Kyle shakes his head. Annie smiles. If Kyle was a little younger, she'd put him on her lap for story time. You know how much your mom hates baseball? Well, that's how much your great-grandfather loved baseball. Joe Jackson was your great-grandfather's favorite player. In 1919, Shoeless Joe led the White Sox to the World Series, but then gamblers paid the team to lose on purpose.
Gamblers? Like DraftKings?
Sure, like DraftKings. Jackson and 7 other players got caught taking the gamblers' money, but unlike the other players, there's no evidence that Joe Jackson didn't play his best game anyway. Didn't matter, though. The league still banned all 8 of them from ever playing in the majors again.
That sounds fair to me.
Well, your great-grandpa John didn't think so. Broke his heart that Shoeless Joe couldn't play the game he loved anymore. He never got over it, and that's always haunted your grandpa. Kyle sits with this for a second.
Is this the kind of thing people stressed about before the world started ending?
Annie laughs, then pulls Kyle close. For the record, that was me laughing as Annie. It only sounded like me. Yeah. I'm not just laughing at my own joke that I've read 30 times.
No, you were laughing at my excellent performance.
You did a great job, Dalton. Mm-hmm. You gave it new life. Cut to inside, where Karen and Simon have found a secluded corner of the big house to have a private, but not terribly quiet conversation. Karen still paces, while Simon leans against a wall, watching her go, keeping calm.
And he specifically requested that I be the one to do it. Do you understand how sick that is?
Your dad wasn't a well man.
No shit, Simon.
Whatever was going on with him, some kind of obsessive compulsion or whatever, I'm sure he would have liked to have done things differently if he could.
Can you not take his side? It's bad enough I'm getting this from Mom.
I'm not taking his side. I'm trying to make sense of it.
Well, you can stop trying. I'm not doing it. If it's so important to Mom, she can do it herself.
Another voice.
I'll do it.
Karen and Simon turn to see their son Kyle standing in the doorway.
We flew all the way here. I want to see the field.
Cut to Karen, Simon, and Kyle driving in silence at dusk. Karen's behind the wheel while Simon holds onto the urn containing Ray's ashes. Kyle looks out the window as row after row after row of corn passes by, and the tall ballpark lights grow closer. Finally, the car pulls into the Kinsella's old property. The remaining corn has been well tended, but Karen is stunned by the state of her old house. It's in total disrepair, to the extent that it's hard to believe that someone was living there only a week ago. On top of the house, we see what appears to be a large black bird, but from a distance, we can't identify exactly what kind. It watches the family as they step onto the property. They walk around back to find the baseball field, which in contrast is exactly as she remembers it, perfectly maintained, an insult to the decrepit house standing beside it. Kyle, however, is amazed by it, a strange oasis in a sea of tall crops. The 3 of them stand on the third base line, near home plate. Simon turns to Karen. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. You know what? I do.
She gestures for the urn, and Simon hands it over. Karen holds it in front of her and stares it down. She blows out her breath.
Actually, can you give us a minute?
Simon nods and leads Kyle away. They wander towards the outfield. Alone now with her father, she places his ashes in the batter's box alongside home plate. She looks down at the urn.
I'm here. Are you happy now? Is this worth all the years of my life you missed?
In the outfield, Kyle runs ahead of Simon until he reaches the outer edge of the cornfield, the tall stalks that serve as the park's outfield wall. Kyle touches one of the corn stalks, a new experience for the city kid. He looks back at Simon and they share a smile. Kyle wanders into the stalks. Simon calls after him. Don't get lost in there. Back at home plate, Karen lectures the urn.
You know, Mom thinks this was all about you missing your dad. Your emotionally shut-off old man who believed that the noblest thing a person could do was not throw a baseball game. But I missed you, Dad. I missed you all the time. And that never seemed to matter to you.
Karen nudges the urn with her foot and it topples over. The lid comes off, and Ray's ashes spill out onto the dirt of the batter's box. The wind picks up, blowing the ashes down the third base line. In the stalks, Kyle wanders around with a smile on his face. We hear the sound of the rustling corn stalks as he walks, but when he stops walking, the sound continues. Kyle looks around for its source. The tops of the stalks sway in the wind above his head.
Dad?
He's gotten turned around now. Which way did he come in? He tries to find the overhead park lights to use as landmarks, but they're nowhere to be found.
Dad, can you hear me?
From the stalks behind him, a hand with chalky white skin and purple blisters reaches out and covers Kyle's mouth. He tries to scream, but is suddenly pulled backwards, disappearing into the corn. In the outfield, Simon checks a notification on his phone. It's a news update that initially makes no sense to him. What the hell? We see what he's reading. The headline is, "The Dead Walk the Earth. Worldwide Panic as Demons and Zombies Rise and Attack the Living." Is this a joke? He scrolls through report after report of terrifying encounters with supernatural predators. He starts to hyperventilate. Kyle? Come back, bud. We gotta go. When he gets no response, he looks around. Kyle? At home plate, Karen hears Simon calling after her son with fear in his voice. She hurries for the outfield. Before she arrives, Simon embarks into the stalks, parting the rows of corn like endless omnidirectional curtains. He's practically swimming. Kyle, are you okay? Simon hears rustling and turns towards it, only for something to immediately crack him over the head. Out in the field, Karen approaches the edge of the corn.
Kyle? Simon? Where are you?
There's rustling. Then, Simon's limp body falls out of the cornfield, collapsing face first onto the Kentucky bluegrass of the outfield.
Simon!
Karen hurries to his aid. She turns him onto his back and finds that he's bleeding badly from the top of his head.
Oh my God. Simon!
More rustling.
Kyle? Kyle, honey, is that you?
From the edge of the cornfield, a hand reaches out desperately. Karen runs to it, grabs a hold and pulls back as hard as she can. Slowly, like out of quicksand, she fights to pull the submerged figure out of the corn until finally, Kyle's terrified face breaks the surface.
Mom!
Then something pulls him back hard from the other side. Karen loses her grip, and Kyle disappears into the crop. A moment later, a figure emerges from the corn. A tall man with cracked, ashy skin wearing a white 1910s baseball uniform, portrayed by Benny Safdie. His face is pale, dried out, like a corpse that's just had an ounce of life injected back into it. Karen regards the figure with a mix of terror and outrage.
You?
Simon stirs, slowly regaining consciousness. Karen barely notices, paralyzed by fear and disbelief.
Give me back my son!
The ballplayer shakes his head.
What do you want?
The ballplayer stares right into Karen's eyes. She locks onto his gaze. Aloud, he says nothing, but Karen seems to be listening. We hear a whispering voice from the corn. If you build it, he will come. She nods.
Okay, I understand. I'll do it. You don't need to keep...
Suddenly, Kyle reaches out from the corn once again, trying to claw his way out.
Mom, help me!
Before Karen can reach him, Kyle sinks back in and goes silent. Karen screams into the corn.
It's okay, baby. I'm gonna get you out of this. Just be brave for me, okay? I'm gonna get you out.
Below, Simon moans and tries to sit up. Karen looks down at him for just a moment. But as soon as she does, the ballplayer backpedals into the corn. Karen runs after him, reaching her hand out and trying to grab him before he disappears into the stalks. She follows him past the threshold, but there's no sign of him, not even the sound of rustling corn. Karen returns to Simon and holds him close. What's going on? Who was that man? Karen stares at the wall of corn with vengeance in her eyes.
That was Shoeless Joe Jackson.
She looks at Simon, totally resolved.
And I need to build a baseball team.
End of Act 1.
Okay.
I want you to give me a little bit of credit here that I wrapped up my Act 1 in 18 pages.
That's right. Yeah, that is
that is where Act 1's supposed to end.
Although, Field of Dreams kind of set the template here because Field of Dreams moves so fucking fast. Like, your Act 1 is still like Shoeless Joe Jackson appears maybe like minute 12 in Field of Dreams, which was shocking to me because I thought that's what the movie was about. I thought he was going to show up like an hour in. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean, now that this is our last, film of Phase 4 before Hell on Earth, I like that all of our movies have taken the opening of Death's Door as the inciting incident. Mm-hmm. Maybe not Mystery Men. I don't remember Mystery Men.
I would say that Mystery Men, the inciting incident is sort of in the post-credit scene when Alexis decides to build a team, I guess. Structurally in that screenplay, the inciting incident is Osiris taking Buckingham Palace.
Yeah,
which is around the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, that one also is sort of a higher level. It's dealing with our super powered people. Yeah. All of other ones have dealt with like normal people.
They've all had people. We set the stage, and
I like
then
that
the world ends.
Yeah, that we're seeing that event from a lot of different perspectives. I like the angle here of I don't think we've seen before a Lega sequel that is a sequel to the original, but also disregards it canonically. Like,
it is a sequel to only the first 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's a sequel to an alternate history version of that movie. Yeah, but you've still got like the same actors and stuff, which is interesting. I don't really have any complaints. I think like everything's working really well. If I had to say anything, I'm not surprised yet.
Okay.
Other than by the Lego sequel aspect of it, which I do think is bold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting what you're saying about feeling like this was a bit of a work for hire for yourself. Because right now this does feel like horror take on Field of Dreams in that it's the same kind of thing, but he's a zombie now and there's more of a threat, which is good because Field of Dreams doesn't really have any actual conflict in it, I would say.
The only conflict in Field of Dreams is between Ray and his brother-in-law, Mark.
And it comes up like twice, and it's not really much of a threat. Yeah. But anyway, so yours has more of a threatening aura. We know that we don't know Shoeless Joe Jackson's intent now. You know, he took Kyle. He whacked Simon on the head. But I'm also so far, I think one of the reasons I don't have anything to say is because it kind of feels like if you were to be like, oh yeah, we're doing a dark universe of Field of Nightmares, this would be the sketch made for Act 1. But it's only Act 1. We've just set up sort of the basic scenario, so I am interested to see where it goes from here. But
the thing is that that's frequently the way that like a Hollywood movie will work, where it's like the first 15 minutes is like, oh, this is what the narrator would explain in like a 90s trailer, right? Like that's all nothing. It's not going to be a whole lot of stuff that you don't expect. We on our show have set the precedent that we usually swerve our audience immediately.
Yeah.
Which I guess all that I've done for that is sort of like you said, the canonization of the first 8 minutes of Field of Dreams, and then nothing good happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm now we're going to get into the part of the movie where Field of Dreams, for its second act, which is most of the movie, is a road movie.
Yeah, which I also was not expecting, but
get ready for a road movie.
Well, hey, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it was in Field of Dreams, but I am not expecting it to be the same here. Well, I think we can just keep going.
Let's rock on. Act 2. At the Alden residence, a TV is playing news coverage to an empty living room. The broadcast outlines the compound horrors occurring across the world. The dead are rising from the grave to eat the living. Demons are invading major cities to kill and torture. And the world's supernatural protectors, the Dark Legion, are nowhere to be found.
They're dead.
They're dead. They're fucking dead. We kill them all. We're really nice about it. We've never rubbed the salt in the wounds of our fans who miss them. Pan over to the adjoining kitchen. At the kitchen table, Annie has her arms and a blanket wrapped around Karen's shoulders. A hot cup of tea sits untouched in front of her. Simon sits across from her, his head in a bloody bandage. Uncle Mark sits between them with his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand, Karen. Your son was kidnapped, and you want to put together a baseball team?
I don't want to. I have to. It's the only way they'll let him go.
He said that. He said, bring me people to play baseball with, or I'll kill this child?
Yes.
Karen looks down at her tea.
Not exactly.
What the hell does that mean?
He told me some other way. Like telepathy, maybe. It was like a voice, and it only said a few words, but there was more between the lines somehow. It's totally clear to me what he wants, what the rules are, everything. I can't just bring any 9 people. He wants a challenge. We only get Kyle back if our team wins. They have to be good enough to beat his team. This is Space Jam.
I know. We'll talk about it. His team? Karen looks at Mark, sighs, knowing exactly how this sounds.
The 1919 Chicago White Sox.
Mark bolts up from the table, practically flipping it as he does. His chair falls behind him. Are you serious? Annie stands up to confront him. It's not impossible, Mark. The dead are walking the earth. It's all over the news. This after nearly a decade of escalating paranormal catastrophes. What even is impossible now? Mark brushes her off. He leans down and talks to the ailing Simon. And you can't corroborate any of this. I told you, I saw a man dressed in white. I heard Kyle cry out, but my vision was still blurry from getting hit in the head. I didn't get a good look at his face, and I didn't hear him say anything.
He wasn't speaking aloud. Simon, you've got to believe me.
I do believe you. Mark slaps the table. Simon, your son was not kidnapped by a dead baseball player. Give it a rest, Mark. We don't know anything right now. Yeah, we do, Annie, because according to the news, the dead aren't rising to play baseball. They're rising to kill and eat the living. There's a beat while all this sinks in. Mark leans down to speak to Karen now, trying to be more gentle. Karen, I know this is hard to hear, but if you really did see some kind of undead ghoul take your son, then he's already dead. Mark! Annie, she needs to hear this. Karen, what do I always say is the most important skill in real estate? What does that have to do with anything? Karen looks at her feet.
Managing expectations. Clients always want more than they can afford.
That's right. The trick is to keep them from chasing after things they can't have, so they're willing to accept what's in front of them. Now, you want to believe that a dead man has kidnapped your son, but is willing to return him to you if you beat him in a baseball game. And to accomplish that, you have to somehow find at least 9 more people to believe it with you. That means going out into a world that's gone to hell and then making it back here alive. Look at what's in front of you right now. You are alive. Your husband is alive. Your mother is alive. And you've got good shelter in a sparsely populated town where there's a decent chance we'll be safe at least for a while. Your son was last seen with a creature that all evidence indicates is a mindless killer. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you see what's in front of you?
I do.
And you're still going to walk away. Karen looks Mark dead in the eye. She doesn't speak, and she doesn't have to. Mark sucks in his lips, fighting some ugly words trying to escape his throat. He walks away exasperated. He grabs a beer from the fridge and walks out onto the patio. Annie and Karen sit back down, exhausted.
You believe me, don't you, Mom?
Annie pulls Karen close. Yeah, I do. Karen smiles a little, as does Simon. So it's the end of the world, and we need a baseball team. Where do we find one? Karen jolts to life.
The Royals. Kyle said they were playing at home.
Kansas City's about 5 hours south on I-35.
Do you guys still have a printer?
Yeah, why?
Because I figure the internet's not going to last much longer, and I'm going to need printed directions.
Cut to Karen loading bottles of water and a box of prepackaged food into her car in a hurry. Simon, still feeling sluggish, approaches her. Don't put so much stuff in the front seat, will you? I need some room for my legs.
Simon, I have no idea what I'm driving into, and you have a concussion.
It's a good thing you're driving. Karen stops packing for a second, looks at Simon, then embraces him. They kiss, which makes Simon a little woozy. He gets inside the car while Karen loads the rest of the goods. Kyle awakens in an unfamiliar place. He's lying on a plain, backless wooden bench. He sits up. On either side of him are rows of athletic lockers. Above, bare incandescent light bulbs weakly illuminate the room. Kyle isn't alone here. There are 9 men in the locker room, wandering, leaning, sitting on the center bench, but all looking dead and miserable. Each of their faces is gaunt, their eyes practically lifeless. They're dressed in vintage White Sox uniforms. Kyle is terrified at first, but after a moment it sinks in that none of these undead ball players seem interested in harming him. Most barely acknowledge him at all. Finally, shoeless Joe Jackson approaches, looming over him, leaning a baseball bat against his shoulder. Kyle is startled and stumbles back over the edge of the bench and onto the floor. He bangs his head against the thin metal of the locker behind him, which stings a little, but is nothing compared to the damage that bat can do. Kyle looks up at Joe, who doesn't react at all to his falling over. Joe just looks back down at him. Joe points at an old calendar hanging on one of the lockers. It's on the page for December 1951, which, if you're curious, is when Shoeless Joe died. When Kyle doesn't respond to this, Joe points at it again, emphatically.
You want to know what year it is? It's 2025.
Joe sighs. He slumps down on the bench. Kyle cautiously picks himself up and sits next to him.
How long has it felt like?
Joe looks at him and snorts. Kyle looks around at the baseball players milling about in the locker room in their White Sox uniforms, punching their gloves, doing the occasional stretch.
Have you guys been waiting this whole time? Waiting to be called to the field?
Joe nods.
My grandpa built that field almost 40 years ago.
Joe shakes his head.
But you couldn't get to it.
Joe nods.
And now you can, but only if there's a game.
Kyle looks around again.
My grandma said that 8 players from the 1919 White Sox got banned for life.
Joe doesn't respond.
There's 9 of you.
Joe's lip curls into an unsettling smirk. A few feet away, a player with his back to Kyle and to us lowers a catcher's mask over his face. Cut to Karen driving down an empty rural road at night. Beside her, Simon, who's been sleeping, stirs. When he realizes where he is, he sighs.
You okay?
As okay as I can be without knowing if my son is safe.
He's okay. They won't hurt him before the game.
How do you know that? Karen shrugs.
This is new territory for me too, Simon.
Is it, though? Karen looks away from the road for a second to stare down her husband. You know what this all means. Karen looks back at the road.
It Doesn't change anything.
Of course it does. If your father received the same kind of message that you did...
It's not the same. I'm following this voice because it'll bring me back to my child. He followed his even when it took him away.
Karen is trying very hard not to cry while she drives. So here's where I cut a sequence where Karen and Simon encounter a traffic jam on a highway as it's overrun by sprinting red ghouls. They pull away before it's too late and decide to stay on back roads from now on. I'm cutting this because this is sort of the thing where we're in the middle of the end of the world. We have to have some of these horror sequences. But unlike in, say, like Night of the Living Dead, this is kind of the superfluous stuff in this script. Mm-hmm. So I figured we could cut it for the director's cut. If you want to hear a scene with some zombies in it, I kind of deliberately keep the zombies at a distance because I need to keep the tension from escalating beyond where a baseball game can take us. That's a real concern in writing this script.
Yeah.
So, and also trying to make sure that without undercutting the menace in the dark universe, I'm not trying to make the zombies, the designs less scary. This still needs to be a movie that a kid can watch and not freak out. So my compromise here was to keep some of the scary shit just a little bit further from the audience.
Yeah.
So it's not less scary violence. We're just not looking at it as closely.
Mm-hmm.
That's my compromise. From atop a light post, something watches the car pass by. It's that bird again. What is it, a raven? A vulture? But when we get a better look at it, it's twisting into something unnatural. A winged demon spying on our heroes with shiny yellow eyes. It spreads its wings and takes off. And we cut to the Limbo locker room, where Kyle is killing time by balancing on the benches that divide the narrow rows of player cubbies. One of the players gets annoyed by the kids hopping around and grabs him out of the air. He holds him by his shoulders and roars into his face. Kyle screams back. The rotting zombified face oozes spit, snot, and pus. A hand falls on the player's shoulder. We follow it to find the catcher, his face obscured behind his mask. Just enough light gets past the mask's metal tubing to illuminate the catcher's stern, serious eyes. The aggressive player snorts like a bull, then finally lowers Kyle to his feet and sloughs away. The catcher still looms over Kyle, who says,
"Thanks."
The catcher says nothing.
"So, my mom's putting a team together to face you, right? Good luck."
The catcher cocks his head.
"None of you guys have played a major league game in 100 years. I don't see a TV in here, so I'll bet you haven't seen one either. Game's changed. Training's gotten more advanced, and players get recruited from all over the world."
Kyle nods towards Shoeless Joe, who's leaning against a nearby locker.
"Aside from Shoeless Joe, none of your records hold up. I mean, I'm sure you were great in your day, but against a modern team, you're going to get creamed."
The catcher shakes his head in disbelief and walks away, unbothered. But a few feet away, Shoeless Joe stares into the distance and crinkles his nose. Never attracting Kyle's attention, Joe wanders down the row of lockers towards an ancient-looking wall-mounted telephone. He pulls the conical receiver off the hook and starts dialing a number. At night, Karen and Simon's rental car pulls up to a gas station, seemingly abandoned, but the first one in miles whose lights are still on. This could be their only chance to fuel up. Karen parks by the pump, and Simon rushes into the nearby convenience store/control station. It's been ransacked and seemingly unoccupied. With no one manning the register, Simon awkwardly climbs over the counter and tries to make sense of the console that controls the fuel pumps. There's a lock on it, like a car ignition, but no key. From behind him, a jingling sound. Simon turns around with a start. Also behind the counter now is a thin, pale young man, portrayed by Mike Feist, wearing an open zip-up hoodie and a baseball cap. This is Archie. He smiles awkwardly, dangling the keys in front of him.
"Hi."
You scared the shit out of me. Where'd you come from?
"I've been hiding for hours, waiting for someone to come through looking for gas."
I love how when you hear Mike Feist, you immediately snap into the only time you've ever done an accent in the history of the show.
Yeah, I could do Mike Feist.
Sounds pretty good, actually. Great. Can you unlock the pumps?
"Sure, as long as you take me with you."
"Take you with us where?"
"Wherever you're going. My so-called friends ditched me and I don't want to die here."
"Trust me, kid. You don't want to go where we're going."
"Anywhere's better than here."
Simon steps towards Archie. Archie backs away. "Look, kid, just give me the key." Archie stuffs the key in his pants pocket, then puts his hand in one of the pockets of his zip-up hoodie. He points something in the pocket at Simon.
"I didn't want to do this, but you leave me no choice. I'm taking your car."
"What's that?"
"It's a gun."
"It's your finger."
"No, it's a gun."
"Show me."
"What are you talking about? I'm not going to show you my gun."
The door opens, ringing the little bell that hangs on the door jamb. It's Karen.
"What the hell's going on?"
Archie swivels around, and Simon dives on him. Karen hurries over the counter and helps Simon wrestle Archie to the ground. Together, they pull Archie's hand out of his pocket. It is, of course, empty. From the floor, Archie flashes a boyish smile. For those of you who have not seen Field of Dreams, that's a scene from Field of Dreams where Kevin Costner tries to kidnap James Earl Jones by claiming he has a gun in his pocket.
Yes.
It's my favorite scene in the movie.
That was the scene that made me laugh.
Good. I
think it's my favorite scene in the movie, too.
And later the call, you said your finger was a gun.
Yeah.
God, there's only ever going to be one James Earl Jones.
That's right.
It's so good. Cut to Simon turning the key in the gas pump. Simon sits on the floor behind him. Outside, Karen starts filling the tank of the rental car. Back to Simon and Archie.
Why don't I want to go where you're going?
Because we're going to Kansas City.
That's a terrible idea.
Simon shoots him a look, and he clams up. Cut to Simon walking from the convenience store to the car where Karen has started the engine. Archie follows after him.
Wait, I meant what I said. Anywhere's better than here by myself.
From the driver's seat, Karen rolls her eyes.
Look, kid. Archie. I sympathize, but it's the end of the world, and we're trying to save our son. So unless you've got some useful skills that'll help us do that...
Archie looks at his feet and mumbles sarcastically.
Not unless you need a good third baseman.
Simon stops walking. Karen reacts as if a double shot of espresso has just kicked in.
What did you say? I said, not unless you need a good third baseman. Get in the car. What?
Simon grabs Archie by the arm and tucks him into the back of the sedan like he's under arrest.
Wait, what did I say?
I'll explain on the way. From above, we watch as the car speeds away from the gas station. In the distance, we can see the Kansas City skyline, a billow of smoke rising from its center. I definitely want to do some more build-up here between picking up Archie and getting to the stadium. Maybe a few other close calls with demons or zombies. Some chance to get to know him a little better before we meet some new faces. I don't want the horror elements to ever get too intense because remember, we've set up the climax of this movie will be a baseball game. For now, let's jump ahead a little. Under cover of darkness with her headlights off, Karen drives the rental car into the packed parking lot of Kauffman Stadium, home of the Kansas City Royals. The lot is littered with stopped cars, some of them banged up from having bottlenecked on the way out, getting stuck and trapping hundreds more cars behind them that have since been abandoned. When they've driven as close to the park as they can, they carefully step out of the car and sneak around shambling gray ghouls until they get to the main gate of the stadium. We're not going to do another extended parking lot zombie sequence here because I just did one in Night of the Living Dead. Suffice it to say that that they still have to make their way through the stadium, avoiding the zombies who still wander the stands and concourses. At one point, we see Archie turn a corner and run right into a gray ghoul who lunges at him only once before seemingly changing his mind and wandering off. Karen and Simon are close behind and see the zombie walking away from an untouched Archie.
What the hell was that? I don't know. Maybe somebody up there likes me.
At last, they find their way onto the playing field. For each of them, it's their first time on the field of a real Major League ballpark. We take a moment to bask in the splendor of this temple to America's game, surrounded by nearly 40,000 empty seats. The lamps above aren't lit, but the moonlight provides romantic lighting for the scene. Not even Karen is immune. She stands on the mound and takes it in. From home plate, Archie points at the home team dugout.
If they took shelter during the game, they'll be in the clubhouse. Our safest route is through the dugout.
The three of them walk down into the home team dugout along the first baseline. It's clear that the team left in a hurry. Bats, helmets, and gloves are all over the ground. It takes all three of them to push open the door in the back of the dugout, which has been blocked by furniture and assorted heavy objects. The lights in the tunnel are off, and the moonlight from outside only follows them a few feet in. Karen turns on her phone flashlight. As they proceed down the tunnel, they find more bodies with their skulls cracked open. Karen nearly trips over something, then picks it up. It's a baseball. It's white leather stained with dried blood. She drops it, and we watch it as it rolls behind her and joins several more on the floor just like it. At last, the three travelers turn a corner and approach the door to the Royals clubhouse, which is preceded by a makeshift fortification. There are Home Depot backyard floodlights on either side of the door. A pair of couches form a defensive wall, and behind each one, a man wearing a Royals uniform and catcher's equipment mans a pitching machine as if it's a gun turret. One of the players shouts in Spanish, and his pitching machine whirs to life, hurling a ball towards Archie's head at about 90 miles an hour. Karen pulls him back around the corner before it can take his head off.
Hey, we're alive. We're friendly.
A fastball flies past, hitting the wall beside them hard. Karen plucks the baseball cap off Archie's head and waves it around the corner like a flag of surrender. Cut to the inside of the Royals clubhouse, which is much nicer than the drab and narrow locker room with the Black Sox have been living in. By the way, the Black Sox is a nickname for the White Sox that cheated, so I'm using that as the name of the bad team.
Ah, that is important. Like the Black Pope.
Yeah, like the Black Pope. It's nicer than the drab and narrow locker room the Black Sox have been living in, and its residents are a lot less miserable. There are about 20 men in Royals uniforms and gear. plus another dozen or so civilians who must have escaped with them during the game. This includes a couple and their young son, a brief reminder of why we're all here. The team sits in chairs arranged in a horseshoe position around Karen, like she's a coach giving a mid-game pep talk. Among the group of players is Kansas City's catcher, team captain, and 9-time Major League All-Star Salvador Perez playing himself. Thought it would be cute. A relic from a cuter draft of the script, but I kept him. Against the opposite wall, Simon and Archie wait for the answer. Archie taps his fingers anxiously against his knee. Simon notices. You okay, Archie?
What? Yeah. Just excited to be here in a big league clubhouse.
Back to Karen and the team.
I know it sounds crazy. I would never have believed a story like this if it hadn't happened to me. But I've got only one chance to save my son. I need nothing less than world-class baseball players, and that's you.
Perez speaks for the group.
I'm not going to do any kind of...
No, don't do any kind of accent. And one of the things is that he was the right pick in terms of a character, but his English is not also great, so I don't even know if we would still use Perez.
Yep, I don't know who this man is.
Just use Dalton's voice, please.
Mrs. Gill.
Mrs. Gill. We all feel for you.
Doing the Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the end of the dub.
Yes.
Paging Mr. Herman. Mrs. Gill, we all feel for you, but we have our own families to think about. We've been planning to head into the city and find our loved ones. Of course, I understand that.
Karen takes a breath, switches gears.
But Kansas City is in chaos. Every city is. Between the stopped traffic and the roving zombies, it's unlikely you'd be able to get to your families, and that's assuming they're even still alive.
A stir amongst the team, some outrage, but also some agreement.
If they have made shelter, trying to get to them might even put them in more danger, and the best outcome you can expect is that you'll die there with them. The kind of help they need is the kind that comes from soldiers and superheroes. But right now, as absurd as it sounds, the only thing that can save my son is a great baseball team.
Simon looks up at Karen. There's a crack in his customary certainty.
I know it's hard, but I'm asking you to look past the problems you can't solve and look at the one you can. You can save a child's life just by doing what you do best.
The players retreat to a corner of the locker room, where they argue amongst themselves in English and Spanish. It gets heated. Players shove one another. One of them, who we'll call Terry, portrayed by Melvin Green of The Blackening and High Flying Bird, fights back tears as he leaves the huddle to take some time alone. This has been going on for some time, and Karen has leaned back onto a couch. She drifts off to sleep. We follow her into her dreams. She stands on the back porch of the old Kinsella place, clean and new the way she remembers it. There's a portable radio on the banister playing Hey Jude. She looks out towards the baseball field where the 6-year-old Karen smiles and laughs, playing catch with her dad. Karen. She wakes with a start. Simon's leaning over her. They've made a decision. The team huddle in front of her breaks up, and the team captain, Salvador Perez, steps forward to speak for them. Terry, the crying player from earlier, stands behind him with his mitt in hand, looking tired.
It wasn't an easy conversation, but there are 9 volunteers. Some of us will have to play out of position, but you've got one full starting lineup. Wow, that's incredibly generous. Thank you. It's like you said. This is how we can help.
Karen sighs with relief and gratitude. Perez puts on a funeral smile.
Besides, who knows the next time we'll get to play baseball?
Behind Karen, Simon is deep in thought. Beside him, Archie stays seating, staring at the players, sizing them up. His fingers still click against his knee. As the Royals start to get their gear together, Karen and Simon stand to the side for a private conversation.
We did it. We're halfway there.
You know, I've never seen you work before.
What do you mean?
The way you adjusted their goals, I suppose you'd call it.
All I did was talk some sense, and it might even save their lives.
It's also exactly the rationale you refused to accept from Mark.
Excuse me?
Before this argument can escalate further, one of the players who was manning the pitch machine earlier interrupts to speak to Karen. This is Chris, portrayed by Brandon Sklenar, the star of Drop in 1883, because I saw Drop the other day. He's a charismatic guy.
Great.
Hey, I just wanted to say, as silly as it seems under the circumstances, we all really appreciate that you asked us to do this. It means a lot to be your first choice.
What do you mean, first choice?
Considering who's in the other clubhouse. Archie's ears seem to perk up. Karen and Simon are still clueless. The New York Yankees? Hard cut to Karen banging on the door to the other clubhouse. Simon and Archie stand behind her in the concourse that connects the home and away clubhouses. Behind them, Salvador Perez stands with his arms crossed. Chris scratches his head and looks at his feet, demoralized. Karen keeps pounding on the door.
Hello? My son needs your help. He's in danger.
No answer.
He's a New Yorker.
After a moment, the door opens a crack. A Yankees player answers, already agitated. What do you want? Karen starts to explain her dilemma for the umpteenth time. Behind her, Archie's hand starts shaking. Simon, standing next to him, puts his hand on Archie's shoulder. Archie, are you all right? Archie's smile stretches beyond what a human face can do.
Yep, doing great.
We hear a sizzling sound, and Simon recoils. His hand's just burnt like he touched the stove. Archie starts shaking wildly, his head shaking uncontrollably fast and turning in all directions. Simon backs away slowly, as do Perez and Chris. Karen and the Yankee behind the door are still occupied with their conversation. Archie begins to lift off the floor. Then he propels forward like a torpedo and knocks the Yankees clubhouse door from its hinges. The player falls backwards and the rest of the team inside, about 20 players in gray and blue, panic. In the center of the clubhouse, Archie's clothes catch fire and his skin melts off his body, dripping into a thick puddle on the carpet. Beneath is the winged demon last seen following Karen and Simon's car. The demon screeches and extends 2 sets of metallic talons, then dives on the nearest Yankee. Out in the concourse, Karen, Simon, and the nearby Royals scream and retreat back into the home team clubhouse as the demon proceeds to slaughter the entire remaining Yankee roster. Collapsing against the inward side of the Royals clubhouse door, Karen exhales.
You guys will do fine.
Cut to the limbo locker room where Shoeless Joe puts the payphone receiver back on the hook and grins. And here's where we'll take our break.
Okay.
I put that last little joke in red because if it's too cute for this draft, we can cut it.
No, because here's the thing.
Yes.
This movie needs to be a comedy.
Okay.
And like functionally. And you get into it in Act 2. Like as soon as Archie gets involved, we're in a comedy from basically Archie introduction until here. Not just because I got to do a Mike Feist voice.
Okay.
And I hope I get to do it again.
You do.
Okay, good.
He's not gone.
I'm enjoying it. But I think functionally this needs to be a comedy because you sort of alluded to the problem you have here, which is that we are in an apocalypse scenario, but this is a baseball movie. I think the tone of the film needs to reckon with the inherent silliness of that, or else the stakes just deflate.
Okay.
Because you are kind of trapped in that, especially at the end of the Hell on Earth thing, where we have had Night of the Living Dead and Old Dark House and The Exorcist and even Mystery Men, which had big global, not global, but like at least citywide stakes.
Real stakes, yeah.
To then take this one seriously as like, okay, it's the end of the world and things are dark and things are serious. Baseball time. Like, I think, and maybe a problem here is that I don't care about baseball, but whenever the tone was serious, it's been really hard for me to get invested in this. And again, that might just be because I have no attachment to baseball.
Sure, but like so far the stakes haven't been attached to baseball, so that's still a me problem, right?
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the baseball game yet.
The fact that there's like that the zombie stuff is still going on. One of the things about storytelling is it's like, why this story? And it feels like in a zombie type scenario, following someone that's like trying to build a baseball team, it feels like, well, why am I watching this? It feels like there's going to be about 6 billion stories happening in this world right now. Why this one? And if the thing is like, well, this is a matter of life or death. Well, there are about 6 billion stories of life and death that are actually probably going to be.
I mean, if I was going to do one story set during the zombie apocalypse, it would not be Field of Nightmares.
Yes,
but I had to do 3.
Making it comedic justifies its existence. Yeah. It's like, because then we get to kind of play against the type of the apocalypse, as you kind of did in Mystery Men.
Let me tell you about the movie I didn't write.
Okay.
It's going to make you mad because I think you'll like it better. It's just like, I just didn't have it. It was just, it felt so shallow and lame to me at that time. And I was watching the original one. I'm like, it's kind of like, as someone who does like Field of Dreams, it felt like it really was being unworthy of trying to make itself part of that legacy to just do like a Looney Tunes type thing.
Yeah. But
originally it was way directly more a Space Jam bit. And here's how it was going to work. The villain of the piece was going to be Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who was the commissioner of baseball at the time that the Black Sox were banned. Played by David Strathairn. And he was going to be putting together the team. And the idea was going to be that he had assembled a team made out of the greatest haters in the history of baseball. So it wasn't just the Black Sox. It was like, I asked a bunch of my baseball fan friends to find me, like, who are just like the worst motherfuckers ever to play baseball? Mm-hmm. Like in funny ways. They can't just all be racists, right?
Yeah. Well, because then you'd have too many people on the team.
Yes, but I mean, like, if I have a roster, and maybe I'll post it somewhere people care, because these players don't mean a lot to me, but I assembled a roster of haters based on my friends' feedback and based on some of my own research, right? But it started to feel more like the Simpsons softball episode than anything else, and I love the Simpsons softball episode, but it was just not something I felt like, this is not a feature film, this is a cartoon.
Yeah.
I cannot make this work as a feature film.
That's fair.
I do not have the ability to make this joke work over even the 70 pages I have to write for you.
While I do like that, I don't think it's necessary. I think you can take this same concept, but it just needs to be more aware of the goofiness. And you do that in this act too. Like him having the baseball shooting, like the automatic pitching machine as like their defense against zombies is funny.
Yeah. And like, I was going to use that as part of like the bus escape when they got out there. And I thought like, now we've gone into goofier than I want for this movie. And I kind of regret it. And like, because that is a fun image if you have a baseball player sticking out of the emergency hatch of a bus firing baseballs at zombies. Mm-hmm. I didn't include it. So you feel like the tone we have in most of Act 2 is closer to what you're looking for,
yes,
right?
Like
the tone of Act 1 is just kind of too dour right now, right?
It's too dour. It's not even that it's too dour. I think dour is good for what we have right now. It is too dour for what the plot of to make the plot of the movie work in the context of our universe. Mm-hmm. Like, you could even maybe in a standalone thing make like a serious movie about baseball and the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. But I think all the work we've done setting up enormous stakes and then making this movie serious, like you said, you have to sort of not engage with the zombie stuff, mm-hmm. which means then you're kind of being serious in a way that feels wrong or like dishonest almost.
It was like the target for me for here was like, I talked about the Goosebumps thing, but I was also thinking about like Shaun of the Dead, right? Yeah. Which is a zombie comedy that also has like a lot of really like heavy emotional beats.
And I think that's okay. Yeah. It can be an inspirational movie. It can be a serious emotional movie. I think it just needs to be a bit sillier. Like the way Mike Feist says, when they're like, unless you're useful to us, and he goes, well, unless you need a third baseman, like if we're playing that serious, I think that line is funny for the wrong reason.
No, I mean, I think you played it right. Like as much as it was hammier than I was expecting out of the performance right away.
Yeah,
you'll get to, there's certainly parts later with this character where ham is exactly what's on the menu. I do think that's probably closer to what works than what I had in my head.
Because that line then, like, the absurdity of being in the middle of the apocalypse and being like, what do you have that we need? And he just happens to be a baseball player when they're looking for baseball players is the sort of inherent silliness that I think this script needs to fit in the world we've made in a way that justifies its own existence and doesn't distract from... It gives you a reason to be watching the baseball movie and the apocalypse mm-hmm. movie instead of, why am I watching a movie about this girl's son being taken that doesn't have any zombie violence or doesn't have any demon violence or doesn't deal with Kansas City falling apart and the destruction of our infrastructure? Like mm-hmm. it's like one of those things where like we're following these guys and it's like, man, it seems like there are a million more interesting stories right outside the camera lens.
So what you're saying
here,
that has to be like the joke of the movie.
There's the world is falling apart and we're throwing a fucking baseball game. Mm-hmm. And that's like that. I think that gets the audience on your side a little bit more if the audience is sort of in on it with you.
Okay. I address a little bit of this later in like, I was aiming for something. It's not necessarily incompatible with the sincerity of the characters, right?
Yeah. So I don't think you have to change the story at all. I think there just need to be, it just needs to be a little
maybe
jokier.
It just needs a little jokier in the first one. It's tough when you're showing up for the funeral, right?
Yeah.
But that actually was my biggest concern going into this, was like, I do think that there is a tonal shift from Act 1 into Act 2, or that happens in the middle of Act 2. And the tone that we have here, I think, is fairly... I think I've built what should be a pretty even bell curve where we get more serious towards the end again. Like this is kind of our. As things got more horrific, I wanted it to be funnier to balance it out because again, I'm trying to aim for like this is a horror movie that like an 8-year-old, well, not 8, but like a 10-year-old would be like, isn't this scary? Isn't this cool? And the parents would be like, sure it is.
The last 10 pages, I think you found the perfect tone. The whole bit about like, well, you know, the Yankees are in the other clubhouse, and then they immediately get slaughtered by a demon, and then she's like, all right, you guys will do. That is the kind of sequence, I think, if you say, oh, we're doing a baseball movie set during the apocalypse, that is going to satisfy a viewer in a way that I don't think Act 1 does.
Okay.
But we have settled so far, like I said, in the last 10 pages, since the introduction of Archie, I think this settles into the tone it needs to strike.
Okay. I hope that we get to maintain it. We are going to move around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly, like I said, this is not one where I'm going in there with my heart exposed. I think I'm with you on that. Yeah. This is the kind of feedback that every writer needs when they're going through. It's gonna be like, no, I'm not trying to rewrite your story. It's just, here's what it could use.
Yeah,
that's how you workshop.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way for just the concerns I had earlier. But I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But we should take our break.
Let's take our break. Let's fill our glasses, empty our bladders, and whatnot. Coming up during this will be a little clip from our most recent bonus pod where we did a studio mandate based on the 1997 Showtime TV movie Snow White: A Tale of Terror,
which we made a sort of stealth sequel to our Into the Woods adaptation.
Right. So it's sort of part of our Jenny and Carol saga, if that interests you. We'll throw a little clip of that here, and then when we come back, right into the middle of Act 2 of Field of Nightmares.
Be right back. Which I also think Sigourney Weaver as an ancestor of Annabelle Wallis is not far-fetched.
You can completely see it. They have very similar bone structure.
Yeah. And I like the idea of if we could explore Sigourney's descent into madness in a similar way to Jenny's and sort of mirror their stories of like both of them becoming these dark witches that they never intended to be, and have her maybe start out kind like she is in this film, but ends up down this darker path.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a way that we could sort of correct one of the things that we found frustrating about this version is that we can retain the descent into madness, but we can make it more of what the movie's about. Because I think part of the problem with A Tale of Terror is I don't know what the movie's about.
Yeah.
It seems it's about like just being like, fuck Disney, this is how it really happened. Karen, Simon, Perez, Terry, Chris, and 6 more Kansas City Royals hurry through the lower corridors of Kauffman Stadium, holding flashlights in front of them and bags of baseball gear over their shoulders. The screams of the New York Yankees echo down the halls. The gang makes their way to a private team parking lot where they find the Royals team bus, one of those long, tall, high-end coach buses that looks more like a train car. They load up as fast as they can while Karen and Simon try to work out the specifics of driving the bus. Drawn by the commotion, nearby gray and red ghouls make their way towards the bus. Salvador Perez is the last man on board and is nearly slashed by a running red ghoul, but with one swing of his bat, he takes the top of the ghoul's head off.
There's a baseball bat kill?
There's a baseball bat. Yeah, we had to have at least one.
Mm-hmm.
The doors,
is that the only one?
Baseball bat kill? Yeah.
Kill counter. 1 baseball bat kill.
Yes. Now we can also we can add back in the idea of the pitching machine turret on the back of the bus.
Yeah, let's put that back.
Put that right back in. Yeah. So then we got a couple more of those on screen, and maybe we even throw in a cute fucking needle drop. Maybe John Fogerty's Center Field is playing.
There we go.
Under this one, if we're going sillier, or the Boys of Summer. Maybe I know it's not really about baseball.
Atari's version.
Yeah, the Atari's version is my wife's favorite of Boys of Summer.
My favorite.
Which is, I actually think I prefer it too, but it's just not about baseball, but Boys of Summer is also a thing that you call baseball players.
Or what if we do The Boys Are Back in Town?
No, that's too far. The doors close and Karen slams on the gas pedal. The bus's wheels screech against the pavement and the giant vehicle picks up speed, mowing through the growing mass of gray ghouls and breaking through the metal divider to escape the lot and out into the street. Behind them, the winged demon that was once Archie flutters above the stadium, watching and cackling. He doesn't pursue. His work is done. Seemingly out of danger, Karen leans back in the driver's seat and catches her breath. Simon sits right behind her and leans forward to speak to her. So, Archie was some kind of monster? A demon in disguise?
Yeah, and I fell for it.
Hey, we both fell for it.
I should have known from the start. If something seems too good to be true, it always is.
Simon looks back at the players on the bus, catching their breath. Yeah, there's a cost to everything, I suppose.
You have something you want to say to me?
Simon thinks for a moment. Let me know when you need a break from driving. He walks towards the rear of the bus and takes a seat alone. Karen watches in one of her mirrors, then looks ahead at the road. Back in the limbo locker room, Kyle is already starting to get bored. He sits on a bench between two rows of lockers and leans forward, resting his head against a locker door. He slowly leans backward, then forwards again like a drinking bird, lightly bumping his head against the aluminum.
Oh my God, how long is this going to take?
The Black Sox all laugh, a dry, whistling laugh that sounds more like wind blowing through a forest of bare trees. The catcher slaps Kyle on the back and sits next to him.
Guess that's why you're all so aggro, right? You've been here for years, decades even.
The catcher looks away from Kyle and then looks forward. One of his teammates nudges past him, bumping his shoulder aggressively. The catcher ignores it. Maybe he's used to it.
You were the last to get here, weren't you? That's why you're not as mean as the others. Are you one of the players who didn't take the gambler's money?
No answer, but it feels like a yes. After a moment,
I don't want to die. I don't want to be stuck here or somewhere worse.
The catcher pretends to ignore him.
I know you guys threw the series in 1919 and made it look like you didn't lose on purpose. If you could do it again...
The catcher swiftly slams his fist against the locker in front of him, denting it. He gets up and walks away, not sparing Kyle another glance. Here's where I've caught an interaction on the bus between Karen and Terry, the emotional player from earlier, about Terry's missing wife and child. Cut to Mark's house. On the front veranda, Annie Kinsella leans against the railing where she's placed a lit candle. She looks out across the front yard. Behind her, Mark steps out the front door and onto the veranda, and I've cut a short scene here between Mark and Annie, reflecting on Annie's decision to leave Ray all those years ago. Then, in the distance, headlights. Annie clutches her chest, smiles, then starts running down the front steps. When the bus pulls into the long driveway in front of Uncle Mark's house, Annie is there to embrace Karen as she disembarks. Mark is close behind and gives her a warm hug. Then Mark watches, agape, as the Kansas City Royals step off the bus and start stretching their legs. Hey, that's Salvador Perez. Karen nods, laughs.
Yes, it is.
Mark takes us in for a moment, then looks to Karen. It's amazing that you got them to come here. You are 50 times the salesman I'll ever be. But, Karen, this doesn't mean any of it was real. This doesn't mean Kyle's still alive. Karen directs Mark's attention to something behind him. He turns around. There's a distant glow on the horizon. It's not the sun. It only just went down. Everyone turns to look. Where could it be coming from? We rise from their eye level so we can look across the flat farmlands. A mile away, a set of tall floodlights shine down on Ray Kinsella's baseball field. The team bus pulls up the drive to the old Kinsella place. There's no one here, but somehow the lights are still on, even after the rest of the town has lost power. The Royals unload their gear and wander onto the field. It looks perfect. Even these big leaguers are impressed. While the team warms up, Karen walks out onto the edge of the outfield, where the cornfield begins, right where she last saw Kyle and Shoeless Joe.
Hello? We're here. I want to see my son.
There's no answer. Some time passes. With nothing else to do, Karen, Simon, Mark, and Annie sit on the bleachers and wait. Annie scoots over to sit close to her daughter.
I don't believe it.
Don't believe what?
I'm doing it. I'm sitting here waiting for Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Karen leans her head on her mother's shoulder. Gradually, new lights appear on the horizon. A line of cars, all making their way here to the ballpark. One by one, local families and confused travelers bring their cars as close to the ballpark as they can get and wander into the stands. They all look tired. Some of them have dirt or blood caked on their clothes or skin. Gradually, the stands fill up. When there's no more room on the bleachers, people set down blankets and lawn chairs along the baselines. They've all been through hell over the past 2 days, but as they watch the Royals run drills and practice plays, everyone present seems to unclench. Except, of course, for Karen and Simon. Karen stares out at the far edge of the ballpark, watching the wall of corn stalks until, finally, a figure appears. Shoeless Joe. The spectators all take to their feet. Their voices fall silent. Behind Joe, the other 8 members of the Black Sox step out of the corn, forming a single line along the corn stalks. One of them, the masked catcher, brings Kyle out with him, keeping a tight grip on his shoulder. From the stands, Karen screams,
"Kyle! Mom!"
Karen hurries down from the bleachers and runs onto the field, Simon close behind. Kyle elbows the catcher and runs free of his grip, sprinting to his parents. They meet halfway, near the second base bag, and embrace each other. Before long, they're joined by Annie and Mark, while Shoeless Joe and the catcher approach from the opposite direction. With unnatural strength, Joe pulls Kyle free from his parents' embrace. Simon rises to his feet and rushes Joe, who swats him with a backhanded fist, and he falls. Karen steps to Joe, and they stare each other down. Neither speaks. Meanwhile, Annie hurries over to check on Simon. He's bruised, but conscious, his second bad blow to the head this week. The catcher steps towards Simon and Annie, casting a shadow over them. "You get away from us!" The catcher recoils, as if he's surprised to be met with such hostility. His and Annie's eyes meet. She gasps. The catcher turns away. Back to Karen and Joe. The rest of the Black Sox have stepped forward to back Joe up. Next, the Royals step up behind Karen.
"I did what you asked. I brought a team that's more than a match for you. Now, are we finished with the theatrics?"
Joe grins mirthlessly. He wheezes a laugh. In the outfield, behind the Black Sox, the corn rustles. A dozen more men walk out onto the grass. Their faces are slashed, their eyes are glossy, but they're nowhere near as desiccated and zombie-like as Joe and his team. These guys are freshly dead, with meat on their bones and pinstriped uniforms on their backs. Here they are, the damned Yankees. Karen's face goes slack as hope is drained from it. Behind Karen, Annie slowly rises as she and Mark help Simon to his feet. She's looking right past the showdown between Karen and Joe. "Annie, what is it?" I don't believe it." The reinforcements join the Black Sox behind their team captain, alongside the catcher. "It's Ray." Shoeless Joe Jackson coughs out a low chuckle, then takes a deep breath. With great effort, he pushes air through the bone-dry bristles of his vocal cords. "Play ball." End of Act 2.
I like the damned Yankees reveal.
Uh-huh.
I think the Ray reveal is easy to see coming. I don't know how much of a twist you wanted that to be.
I thought it was. I thought that saving it for the end was like everybody knows, right?
Yeah, no, I think this is the right place to do it, because I do think at this point people have figured it out. You don't want to draw it out too long.
Like, I wanted to create a little ambiguity of, like, is it also could it be the grandfather because he was the catcher or whatever? But, like, narratively, it's so obvious that it's Ray that like I can't save it for the very end. I do find ways in the next act to keep there some suspense and some, like, so that we sort of still get a moment like you have it. Well, I won't talk about too much, but like, but yeah, I have both those things happen at the same time because they're both the two things that escalate us into Act 3.
Yes, of course.
But you were going to say the review. Do you feel like would you have done it earlier or later?
No, I think you played it right. I think everything here is good. I think this tonally is continuing a pace correctly. The Damned Yankees is a good. That's like like the Damned Yankees, like naming wise, is funny, but also the sort of sick twist of, oh, they're not playing against these guys; they're playing against these guys that were just killed. Is like sort of sickly funny in the right way. I think I'm missing the zigzag. I am feeling, which, you know, it's not what Field of Dreams does. And maybe it's just that's one thing that doesn't work for Field of Dreams for me. I wish there was like oh shit, I see what you did. Like, that's such a twist on, you know,
right,
the concept.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to think that of all of the projects that I've done for this show, that this is where I've played it the safest.
This is maybe the straightest adaptation.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it is.
Well, I'll tell you one major change that I knew I was going to do right away. And this dates back to the sort of more Space Jam idea, but it was something I never wanted to throw away. By my strict definition of a sports movie.
Yes.
Field of Dreams, not a sports movie.
There's never a game of baseball.
In order to really be a sports movie, the stakes of the jeopardy of the story has to depend on the outcome of a sporting event.
And I think maybe that's actually something that doesn't work about, because a lot of sports movies, even though I don't care about the sport, get to me.
Yeah,
this
because
one
sports
did
are
not.
dramatic, right?
Yeah.
The drama, because Field of Dreams is sort of about like the tradition of baseball and the pastime of it, and the way that it's passed from generation to generation.
It
and the
entirely
way that
depends on you having nostalgia.
You have to
for
care
the
about
game.
baseball in that sense, right? And if it doesn't make you care about baseball, then it's not like, certainly there's been lots of sports movies about sports I don't care about that have made me care about the sport.
Yeah.
Now, in a longer draft of this, would it maybe be good to, like, usually in a sports story, in a sports movie, you get more than one game, right? But I think in this, you have to do one.
I wonder if there's a version of this that wasn't a sports movie, that used baseball similar to how Field of Dreams does as sort of a backdrop, but told a different story. And I understand that you wanted to do a sports movie with this. That's probably one of the reasons you picked it.
Yeah,
is so you could do a sports movie within the Dark Universe. But I'm almost wondering if maybe... Well, I don't know.
Okay, maybe. I mean, let's see how you feel at the end of it, because one of the things that I wanted to do is I had a lot of fun as a writer figuring out how to mechanically, within the rules of baseball, get the exact outcome and set of circumstances that I needed to pay off the climax. Like, I've written lots and lots of action sequences, right? And like a cross-cutting three interlocking set pieces. Like, writing action has become a thing that I'm proud of my growth in that here. I think I'm pretty good at writing action sequences. One of my strengths here, right?
I agree.
And so having to do something like that, having to build to a climax with a completely different set of conditions within a rigid set of rules that are familiar to the audience. But I actually asked a little bit on Discord about this. I know that we have fans from, say, the UK, which is one of the, like, which is a country where they, like, really don't do baseball. Baseball is a pretty popular international sport, but in the UK and India, they have cricket.
Yeah.
So they don't play baseball for the most part. I tried to be as clear as possible without explaining how baseball works, about why things matter. It's possible that the game might read a little bit like play-by-play, and if it does, I hope it's still fun.
Okay. Yeah, it's this, again, is probably just my preferences as a viewer. I think this is a Dark Universe movie that is not made for me because I am not a baseball fan. But maybe the drama of the game will get me. I think we'll check in at the end.
I hope so. We'll find out.
My instinct is, I find myself wishing maybe this was a Dark Universe movie parentheses baseball version instead of baseball movie parentheses Dark Universe version.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe like a movie where we deal with sort of the tradition of baseball in the way that Field of Dreams does, and it like all builds like a climax at the real baseball stadium, going bigger, and and that becomes sort of the setting, like, because baseball is the setting of Field of Dreams.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, let's get through. Let's do Act 3. Let's see how we feel about it. And I gotta say, you know what? It's a little bit refreshing to be able to talk about one of my scripts so academically like this. It is I kind of start to understand the appeal of the sort of here's your assignment, work for hire type thing.
Yeah,
and that made this that's kind of what made this an interesting challenge at the end of the day. We're being like having to repeatedly find it. I don't expect this is necessarily going to be anybody's favorite app, right? Maybe if you love baseball and you hate Field of Dreams, I don't know. It's enough meditating. Let's finish the script.
Yeah.
Act 3. Thump. A fastball sinks into a leather catcher's mitt. The umpire calls strike one. Where'd the umpire come from? I honestly have no idea. A problem for the next draft.
It's Lieutenant Frank Drebin from The Naked Gun.
We pull back and see the Royals catcher, Salvador Perez, behind the plate, though his face is covered by the customary catcher's mask. From him, we cut to his opposite number on the Sox bench, the catcher who we've still yet to see without his mask. He stares intensely at the game while Kyle sits beside him on the bench. On the bleachers, spectators settle in for the game. There's casual chatter, a sense of calm and community, but not for the four people sitting on the top bleacher along the Royals bench: Karen, Simon, Annie, and Mark.
Are you sure it was him?
No, I thought it was, but from his eyes, with that mask, I can't be sure. I'm sorry. Could it be Ray's father, John? Wasn't he a minor league pitcher? At the plate is the leadoff batter wearing a Yankees uniform. It's someone Perez recognizes. He tries to chat him up.
Hey, Austin. Looking good for a dead man.
The batter doesn't acknowledge him. He's not home. Back to Karen, who's been watching.
I don't know that it matters. You might not even know who he is.
The batter nails the next pitch into the outfield, scoring a base hit. A kid in the stands starts to shout, "Let's go, Royals!" Clap, 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 clap. And soon the crowd has joined in. Mark's attention turns to Kyle on the away team bench, surrounded by Sox and Yankees. We can't just sit here and watch. There's got to be 300 of us here. Once the Sox go on defense, there will be fewer of them on the bench guarding Kyle. If we tell some of the crowd what's at stake, I bet we can convince them to rush the field with us. We can overwhelm those creatures and get Kyle out of here. A voice from over their shoulders.
I wouldn't do that.
The three of them look up. Standing just behind them on the top step of the bleachers is Archie, now dressed in the modern Chicago White Sox coach's training jacket. He's chewing gum. Karen jolts to her feet. Archie puts his hands up.
Easy. I'm not here to...
Karen shoves Archie off the bleachers. He falls 10 feet onto his back. On impact, he clutches at his throat, choking on his gum.
No, choking on a piece of hot dog. That is what happens in Field of Dreams.
Okay, maybe it should have been a hot dog. Maybe he should be eating a hot dog. Karen, Simon, and Mark look over the edge of the bleachers and down at the ground while Archie kicks his legs wildly, clawing at his throat in agony, and finally lies still.
I'm not here to fight.
Now he's sitting on the bleachers right beside them. Mark does a double take. Archie's body is no longer on the ground.
I just want to watch the game. Who are you? Who are you really? I'm the team owner. And since your dad didn't build any luxury boxes, I'm making do here with the hoi polloi.
What do you mean, team owner?
I bought the Chicago White Sox way back in 1919. Well, not the team so much as the players. I came to them with an offer. Throw the World Series, betray the sport they love, make some fast cash. I warned them they'd be selling their souls. Guess they thought I was kidding. You're responsible for all this. Yup.
You were the voice in my husband's head.
And in mine. Mm-hmm. Why? Why do people watch baseball? Because it's something to do. There's drama, there's suspense, there's heartbreak. But mostly, it's a low-effort way to kill time. When you've been alive as long as I have, you gotta find creative ways to amuse yourself. Personally, I like games.
My family's life is not a game.
Well, I'm sure Super Mario doesn't think his life's a game either. Though, that is a fun idea.
Archie pulls out a notepad and pen from his jacket pocket and scribbles something down.
Next cycle. Self-aware Mario?
Karen swats the pad out of Archie's hand.
Enough jokes. Is that my father down there? Maybe.
Mark steps up to Archie. Listen up, psycho. Whoever you think you are, you're... Archie reaches out and grabs Mark by the throat. Archie's hand now more closely resembles a vulture's talon.
Who do you think you are, Daddy Warbucks? I was there for the first game of backgammon. I've got the first die ever thrown sitting on my mantelpiece.
Archie drops Mark, who falls into the arms of Simon and Karen.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to watch the last ever game of baseball. And if there are any more interruptions, or if anyone tries to rescue Kyle before the game's over, I'll kill everyone here, starting with him. Got it?
Karen stares holes into him, but that's all she can do. There's another crack of the bat, a foul ball, which draws everyone's attention. When the family looks back for Archie, he's no longer on the stands. Karen turns back to the field and sees that Archie is now standing behind his team's bench, chewing gum, clapping his hands.
Let's go, boys!
He turns to look up at Karen, smiles, and winks. Karen seethes and takes a seat. We see a condensed version of the inning. It's not too dire. Chris, the Royals pitcher, throws a strong inning. 2 strikeouts. But whenever a batter hits the ball into play, the Royals defense is a mess, the result of a few players being out of position in order to fill out the roster. The shortstop is usually a third baseman, the right fielder usually plays center, etc. The Sox score 2 runs in the top of the first. We get this information via chatter in the stands, which reminds us that despite her current disinterest in the game and lack of familiarity with modern players, Karen actually knows a fair amount about baseball. The longer she watches, the more of it comes back to her. Though she doesn't say anything, Annie wears a proud, nostalgic smile. With 2 outs and Shoeless Joe in scoring position, the Sox catcher is called at the plate. He's been wearing his catcher's mask on the bench, but now it's time to bat, which means taking it off. From the stands, Annie and Karen watch eagerly, hoping for confirmation of his identity. He stands up and tugs at the match, which fights to stay on his face. Its leather pads have become stuck to his scabby, undead skin. He pulls harder, and the mask comes off, as does most of his face.
That way we don't have to bring back Kevin Costner.
The rest of the team on the bench laughs, as best they can anyway. Kyle jolts off the bench and runs to his side.
Are you all right?
The catcher turns around suddenly, and Kyle gasps at the sight of the catcher's torn-up visage. His own mother wouldn't recognize him. Kyle stammers backwards. Above, Annie gasps. The catcher sighs and slumps towards the plate. The Black Sox on the bench may be without speech, but somehow their dry, strained vocalizations still read as jeers and jibes. Their body language similarly reads, "Don't screw this up." The catcher steps to the batter's box, determined to silence the critics. Crack! He smashes the very first pitch. It's got speed and distance, straight down the third base line. The right fielder chases it, tries to get underneath it, and it hooks foul. The catcher spits, mutters to himself, then swings at the next pitch and whiffs it. 3 strikes. He's out. The inning ends with Joe stranded in scoring position. The catcher slams his bat against the plate in frustration, and the rest of the team on the bench laughs and hisses like high school bullies. The game rolls on, and things aren't looking great for the Kansas City Royals. Through a montage, we watch the innings progress. The Black Sox single-mindedly focus on the game, rally on offense, and execute solid defense, while the Royals grow tired and distracted. When the starting pitcher for the dead team gives up a 2-run homer to Salvador Perez, Archie brings in the hook and a relief pitcher takes over. After all, he's got the entire Yankees bullpen to work with, and there's no game tomorrow. But the Royals have no relief. It's just the 9 players on the field. It's the 4th inning, and the Sox are at bat. Chris, the Royals pitcher, embodies the physical fatigue of the game. But more of our focus is on Terry, the first baseman, whose position near the bleachers gives him the clearest view of the spectators. Parents sit holding their children, enjoying a reprieve from the misery of the apocalypse. A child smiles at her father. Terry's resolve cracks. Meanwhile, at the plate, the catcher is back at bat, more determined than ever to make a play and prove his worth. Between pitches, he catches a glimpse of the distracted first baseman. The catcher swings at the next pitch and connects, sending the ball down the first base line and right past Terry, who reaches a moment too late to stop what should have been an easy out and instead becomes a base hit. Though, technically, on a scorecard, that would be marked an error. The jaded Black Sox on the bleachers nod and growl with approval. Before the next batter, catcher Salvador Perez calls for a meeting on the mound with Terry and Chris.
Terry, you good?
I'm sorry. I think I made a mistake. I shouldn't have come here. Addie and Karina...
Don't do this to yourself now, Terry. Keep your head here.
Up in the stands, Karen watches the meeting. "What's going on?" says Mark. Karen doesn't answer, but the weight of what she's done grows heavier. The meeting breaks up and the crowd shows their support. The inning continues, and the next play at first results in an out. The side retires without any more runs being scored. The next few innings, the Dead continue to build momentum, while one by one, the Royals start making clumsy mistakes. In the 6th inning, the Sox score 2 more runs, and the frustration is mounting. Not even Salvador Perez is immune. We see him bobble a pitch behind the plate, and since it would have been a 3rd strike, the batter's allowed to run as if he hit the ball. Perez recovers the ball and throws it to first, narrowly avoiding another error. This is an important detail. If a batter swings at what would have been the 3rd strike, and the catcher does not catch it, it's not an out. The batter can run. And the play is to throw to first and get the out. Everybody got that? Good. Cut to an argument on the Royals bench. 2 players nearly get into a fistfight before Perez breaks it up. Across at the Sox bench, Archie has a laugh, and reality starts to sink in with Kyle. He hugs his knees to his chest. Above, Karen puts her head in her hands. In the top of the 7th, the Royals give up 3 more runs, beginning with a solo homer that really rattles the pitcher. We reach the 7th inning stretch, and the score is Sox 7, Royals 2. Per tradition, the teams retreat to their benches, while the fans in attendance stand up and stretch their legs. They're having the best time they've had in what feels like forever. But for Karen, Simon, Annie, and Mark, the situation is dire. They stay seated, dejected. "Oh, God. Kyle, what are we going to do?"
I made a mistake.
You're right. We never should have left Kyle's fate in the balance of a baseball game.
It's not what I meant. I went about this all wrong.
Karen stands and starts collecting her things. "Where are you going?"
I'm going down to the field.
"And do what? Sub in for the shortstop? You haven't swung a bat in 30 years.
No, but I'm a good salesman.
As Karen makes her way to the Royals bench, the crowd entertains themselves with an impromptu rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. When Karen arrives on the field, Kyle springs up from the Sox bench and tries to run to her, only to be restrained by undead players. Karen sees this, wants to go to him, but Archie wags his finger. She gets it. Stay on her side. Next, she locks eyes with the catcher, looking for signs of recognition. From afar, even without the mask, it's hard to get a read. She approaches the home team bench, where the 9 exhausted Royals prepare for their next chance at bat. Before she can say a word, Terry says, "Karen, I'm so sorry. We all are. We let you down."
No, you didn't. I let you down. I let myself down. I should never have tried to talk you out of rescuing your own loved ones.
Our plan wouldn't have worked. We were deluding ourselves. You talked sense.
For my benefit, not for yours. I treated it like just another sale, as if you all didn't have just as much at stake as I did. I used you, and I'm sorry. I've spent my career getting people to accept less, to expect less. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes you have to compromise. But sometimes you don't, and you shouldn't. Some things are too important.
Karen peers over at Kyle, sitting on the bench, guarded by the undead. She looks back at the team.
So here's my new offer. When this game is over, anyone who wants to is getting back on that bus, and we're looking for your missing families. Win or lose, I'm coming with you, and we're going to do everything we can, take every improbable risk to make ourselves whole again. In exchange, all I need from you is this. I need you to believe we can win.
Karen points at the crowd in the stands.
Everyone out there has been through the same hell that you have. Whatever the outcome, they're all going to remember this game and be grateful to you for the rest of their lives, just for the 2 hours they didn't have to think about the world outside. But I think they deserve more than that. I think they deserve to see a comeback. Do you?
The team looks back, their spirits rising.
I said, do you?
Yeah!
Are we going to show them a comeback?
Yeah!
Then let's play some baseball.
Yeah! The Royals cheer together and pump their fists and bump their chests. The crowd notices, and their enthusiasm reverberates across the stands. Across the field at the opposing bench, Archie sneers. Kyle smiles. Beside him on the bench, the catcher looks down at him, and then back up to Karen. When the Royals' first batter steps to the plate, all of his teammates at the bench stay on their feet, cheering him on. Via montage, we see as the tide turns in the game. The Royals rally, stringing together hits, stealing bases, stretching singles into doubles. They're starting to have fun. A run scores off a sacrifice fly, and another runner is headed home, sprinting for the plate. The shortstop relays the ball from the outfield to the catcher. It's slightly overthrown, but the catcher expertly grabs it and swings his mitt down to tag the runner just before he slides to the plate. The side is retired. It's 7-4 going into the 8th inning. The Sox and Yankees pat the catcher on the back as he returns to the bench, finally warming to him. When he takes a seat next to Kyle, he doesn't even acknowledge the kid. On the Royals bench, the team takes the close call in stride and jogs out to their defensive positions, blood pumping. At the top of the 8th inning, more Black Sox players start to show some fatigue and are subbed out with fresh damned Yankees. Shoeless Joe and the catcher remain in the lineup. The fresh batters are pushing the tired Royals pitcher to the brink. He just doesn't have any more strikeouts in him. But his teammates have his back, getting him out of trouble by turning a double play that retires the side before any runs can score. Bottom of the 8th. The Royals maintain their offensive momentum with some more small ball precision. A sac bunt from the pitcher, who even under American League rules still has to bat because they only have 9 players, moves a runner to third, and he's able to score off the next batter's line drive. The Sox lead narrows to 2. Kyle jumps to his feet and hoots and hollers, as do the spectators. In the stands, Simon and Annie hug. Even Mark is starting to line it up. A solo homer from Perez makes it Sox 7, Royals 6 before the Deadmen finally get their third out. Top of the 9th. The pressure is on our exhausted Royals pitcher, who in a real Major League game would never be asked to pitch 9 innings with this much at stake. The first batter hits a single. The second patiently takes a walk. A sacrifice fly advances both runners. The pitcher's in deep trouble. Next to the plate is the Black Sox catcher, looking to cement his place on the team. He swings at the first pitch and hits right into a double play, making it to first himself but causing the other 2 runners on base to be called out. The Sox bench erupts with frustration. The stands with cheers. With 2 outs and a runner on first, the Royals pitcher wipes sweat from his brow and stares down what could be his last batter of the game, or of his life. A slider, called strike 1. A changeup, fouled off into the stands, strike 2. His next pitch goes wild. The batter checks his swing, and catcher Perez bobbles it in the dirt behind the plate. The catcher steals second. As the team cheers him on, the pitcher takes slow, careful breaths, holding it together. Another slider, just outside the strike zone, making the count 2-2. The team on the field starts cheering on the pitcher from their positions around the field, lending their strength. Karen joins in, then the crowd. Let's go, Chris! Let's go, Chris! He digs in deep, takes a breath, gathers his strength, narrows his focus, and throws the pitch of his life. It's a bullet, 95-mile-an-hour easy. The batter swings and whiffs. The crowd erupts, even as Chris stumbles down to his knees, clutching his shoulder. His team leaps up and down with excitement and rushes to the mound to embrace him. But Chris is hurt. He clutches at his shoulder as the boys help him to the bench. Karen awaits him there.
Amazing work, Chris. We're only 1 run down. We just need to bring 1 runner home to stay alive.
Chris plops on the bench. 2. We need 2. I can't feel my arm. If we go into extra innings, we're cooked. Karen looks across at Kyle. She takes a breath, fights her fear.
Okay, then we win it here and now. 2 runs. 2 runs, boys.
Across the field, the catcher is getting his pads on. Once again, his frustration is obvious. Next to him, Kyle speaks.
Hey, I know this game means a lot to you. I get that. It meant a lot to my granddad and great-granddad, too.
The catcher's head snaps back towards Kyle. Kyle sinks back into the bench.
Fine. Whatever. See you in hell, I guess.
The catcher stares Kyle down with his bloodshot eyes, then lowers his mask onto his face. He turns and walks to his position behind the plate. It's the bottom of the 9th. The Sox lead 7-6. The first batter gets things going with a line drive into center field. The batter sprints to first, pushing hard to arrive safely before the center fielder can fling it over. Next, Terry steps to the plate. This time, when he catches a glimpse of a smiling child in the stands, he inhales a breath of enthusiasm and hope. He knocks a pitch into right field, dropping just out of the outfielder's reach. He sprints as hard as he can, rounding first and rocketing towards second while the previous runner makes for third. The right fielder hurls the ball to second. Terry dives and touches the bag a split second before the defender's mitt tags his shoulder. He's safe. Hope begins to erode as the next batter strikes out. The next batter hits a line drive into left field where Shoeless Joe scoops it up immediately and throws it home, preventing another runner from advancing. When Salvador Perez steps to the plate, there's 1 out and runners on second and third. The crowd chants, "Salvi! Salvi!" He waits for his pitch. When it comes, he whacks the ball. It blasts towards left field in a shallow arc. Shoeless Joe runs towards it. Everyone holds their breath. Joe slides. Boom! It sinks into his glove as he smoothly returns to his feet. 2 outs. From third base, our first runner tags up and bolts for home. Terry heads for third. Shoeless Joe rockets the ball to the shortstop, trying to beat the runner home. He relays the ball to the catcher. Too late to prevent the tying run from scoring. The crowd goes wild. The score is now 7-7. Terry, the winning run for the Royals, is on third base. But the Sox are 1 out away from assuring a 10th inning, which will surely spell doom for the Kansas City Royals and Kyle Gill. Archie calls time to the frustration of Karen and the Royals who want to preserve their momentum. Archie meets his pitcher, catcher, and infielders on the mound.
Are you kidding me? You guys are playing an awful lot like you want to spend the rest of eternity in that locker room.
It's almost like John Mulaney right now. It's great. He puts his finger right in Shoeless Joe's face.
You've been waiting for this game for 100 years.
And then he turns to the catcher.
This is the only thing you've cared about for decades.
On the home team bench, Karen's ears perk up.
If you don't pull through, this,
Archie indicates the field,
will have all been for nothing.
The catcher turns toward the Royals bench and sees Karen, who's looking right at him. Archie grabs the catcher's chin and turns his head back towards him.
Don't look at her. Look at me. Who's been there for you, huh? Who kept you company when your family abandoned you?
The catcher grits his teeth.
That's right. Now go win back your family legacy.
The meeting breaks up, and the catcher returns to his place behind home plate. Archie stomps back to his team's bench. The next Royals batter is taking a moment to remove the practice weights off his bat. Terry waits eagerly with 1 foot on the third base bag. Karen stands along the sideline, looking at the catcher as he adjusts his pads and punches his mitt, preparing for the next at-bat. She looks out at Kyle, who looks back with tearful anticipation. As the batter steps into the box, Karen takes another look at the catcher, then closes her eyes and sings,
"Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better."
The first pitch is low and away. The batter swings anyway, fouling it off. Strike 1. There's no sign yet the players can hear Karen sing.
"Remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better."
Her voice is carrying, though, especially as the crowd has become hushed in anticipation of this crucial at-bat. From her place in the bleachers, Annie hears Karen's voice. She stands and joins her.
"Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better."
Another pitch. This one's a swing and a miss. Strike 2. Afterwards, the catcher's head turns towards Karen just a bit. Up in the stands, Simon stands up beside Annie, switching to the sing-along part of the song. Na, 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 hey Jude. The crowd starts to get into it, clapping on the 2s and 4s. Singing and clapping spreads across the bleachers. Even Mark is getting involved. Then down to the team benches. Kyle starts singing, wiping his tears away, putting his chest into it. Archie swivels around and screams at him.
Shut up, kid!
He doesn't stop. Close on the catcher's eyes behind the mask. The damned Yankee pitcher winds up, then throws a sinker that dips into the strike zone. The catcher reaches for it, but not far enough. He bobbles it, and it starts rolling into the grass behind home plate. The umpire calls a strike, but not an out. The singing stops, replaced by gasps and screams from the crowd. From third base, Terry sprints for home while the batter takes off for first base. The catcher runs after the ball and scoops it up. Terry's nearly at the plate. The catcher's a few paces away. The batter is only halfway to first. From the baseline, Archie screams,
"First! The play's at first!"
The catcher rushes for home plate, diving forward with his glove ahead of him. Terry dives at the same time, reaching out for the plate with both hands. We watch in slow motion as the catcher swipes with his mitt to where Terry's fingers are about to touch the plate, tagging the runner just a split second too late. The umpire signals, "Safe!" The crowd explodes. Annie, Simon, and Mark wrap their arms around each other and hop up and down on the bleachers. Below, Kyle leaps off the Sox bench and runs across the diamond for his mother. She does the same, and they meet in front of the pitcher's mound in a tearful embrace. While the rest of the Royals pitchers cheer and the Sox and Yankees angrily throw their gloves at the ground, Archie starts a beeline for the plate, where the catcher still stands.
The play was at first, you idiot! What kind of moron risks the game on a tag at home when there's an easy force out at first?
The catcher removes his mask, revealing his red and bloody face, and stares Archie down. Archie growls at him, throws his hat down in the dirt, then storms off towards the rows of corn behind the outfield. The rest of the undead players slowly follow behind, taking their time gathering their gear. The Royals dance and jump around at their bench, hoisting Terry onto their shoulders and carrying him toward the team bus. As the crowd begins to thin out, Simon, Annie, and Mark join Karen and Kyle on the field, relieved and elated to be in each other's arms. Shoeless Joe and the catcher are the only two dead players left on the field. Joe walks towards the outfield, the catcher not far behind, trying to reach him. Joe turns around and puts an arm out to stop the catcher's advance. Joe looks him up and down, sneers, and spits in his face. He turns and walks away, disappearing into the corn. The catcher stands alone in left field. He takes a heavy breath and continues his march to the cornfield. From behind him, a voice.
"Hey, Dad?"
He stops. The catcher turns around to see Karen, standing just 20 feet away, holding a ball and glove. She's got tears in her eyes. Behind her, standing on the pitcher's mound, the rest of the family watches on. Karen holds up the ball in front of her like she's extending a hand in friendship.
"Want to have a catch?"
Ray's bloody face rises into a soft smile. A tear runs down his cheek. He puts up his glove hand. The ball lands there crisply. We pull back as father and daughter pass the baseball back and forth, the taillights of the visiting spectators slowly making their way back into the doomed world, their passengers' hearts that much lighter for the diversion. As our view rises, we see Kyle, Annie, and Simon walk out into the outfield, and Karen and Ray start passing the ball between them too. Mark takes a seat on the home team bench, and like us, he watches the family play. Fade to black. Mid-credit scene. Outside the Kinsella farm, the Kansas City Royals load onto the team bus. Karen Gill shoves a duffel bag into one of the bus's large undercarriage storage units and slams it shut. Behind her, Simon and Kyle await her final goodbyes. "You sure you've got everything?"
"As sure as I can be, without knowing how long I'll be gone. But you are coming back, right, Mom?"
Karen puts a hand on Kyle's shoulder.
"I'm coming back. We're going to find as many of these players' missing family as we can, and we'll bring them back here where it's safe."
"Kansas City's going to be a zoo. You'll have demons and zombies chasing you at every turn." Karen smirks.
"That's why we brought in specialists to draw their attention."
We pan over, past the front of the bus to a vehicle parked in front of it. A black and gold 1977 Pontiac Trans Am. A young woman stands outside the passenger door having a quick stretch. It's Carrie, a.k.a. Smokey, as introduced in Our Smokey and the Bandit, portrayed by Sydney Sweeney. She steps into the car, shuts the door, and turns to the driver with a smile. "Ready to roll, Bandit?" The driver, played by Glenn Powell, tips his cowboy hat and grins.
You betcha, Smokey. Let's boogie.
With the roar of the bandit's engine, we cut to black.
Smokey, the Bandit, and Karen Gill will return in The Dark Legion, Hell on Earth.
They don't have to.
Not actually guaranteed.
No,
actually, probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
This was my little shot to canonize our Smokey and the Bandit. Once again, for people who don't know the bonus episode, I know that Smokey is not the name of a character in the original Smokey and the Bandit. That's a nickname for the state police. We call her Smokey because she was going to get burned at the stake. She's our equivalent of the frog. Anyway, if you haven't listened to that bonus episode, it's in the main feed, and I love it. Okay, before we go to the post-credit scene, let's talk about this, because I don't want the post-credit scene to distract us. Stop scrolling. Stop scrolling on your iPad. We're not reading that yet.
Okay.
Let's talk about the end of this movie.
I kind of want to veto this post-credit scene.
I was actually about to say, okay, so I did something unprecedented.
So did I.
And so did you. I wrote a post-credit scene with the idea that if Dalton did not like it, that did not want to commit to it for the show, that we would not use it, because it does involve one of your characters from your tent.
Yes.
And it sets up something for Hell on Earth. And I was like kind of thing where like, I wouldn't want you to do this without me.
Yeah.
I'll write it. We'll read it, see what you think. Yeah. And you did like the scene.
I like the scene.
But there's reasons why we don't want to put it out there.
Yeah.
Yet.
I'm not even going to say it's not canon, but I am vetoing it for now. We will release it post Hell on Earth.
Yeah, we'll put it in the planning episode probably.
Probably put
like
it in the planning episode if we remember.
Yeah. Remind us to put the scene in there.
I am vetoing it as the post-credit scene for this movie, but I love the mid-credit scene.
Yeah, Smokey and the Bandit, baby.
Smokey and the Bandit.
All right,
love to see them.
Let's talk about the ending of Field of Nightmares.
I think you made a very successful sports movie.
Thank you.
I think you did what you set out to do. I think you hit all the beats that need to be hit. The pep up, from Karen is really good.
You got to have a big speech.
Got to have the big speech. I think the singing of Hey Jude is a great little sports movie moment.
Okay, good, because I was a little worried that it was bad.
No, I think you set it up well earlier in the film. Again, I think it's just a tone thing with this one where we let the rest of it be more playful, and then because I think if the rest of the movie was a more serious, dour tone, then the Hey Jude moment doesn't work.
Okay, so
because
really,
it is a little too Disney but you play it a little more self-aware and funny, and then something like that not only feels like you kind of get your cake and eat it too, where you satisfy the needs of the sports movie while also being aware that you're a sports movie, and so it helps it land a little better.
I want to make sure, is it clear to you what happens in the final play of the game?
No, but it doesn't matter. I'm that way with every sports movie.
Here's where it does matter, because what I'm trying to imply here is that Ray deliberately fucks up the final play of the game.
Yeah,
okay, so that is clear.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as that's clear, because that's his redemption, right?
Yeah, because that's
otherwise otherwise it doesn't make any sense for Karen to like reach out to him at the end.
But
he makes the sacrifice of that he, in order to save his family, does the one thing that his father hates the most, which is throwing a baseball game. Okay, as long as that's clear. I didn't want it to seem like he was just distracted by the song. I needed to make it be clear that he made a choice.
Yes.
I want to give myself a little pat on the back, because most of the time a baseball movie ends with, if it's about a hitter, it ends with a home run. And if it's about a pitcher, it ends with a strikeout, right? I needed to engineer a scenario where the game could depend on a play at the plate. And the reason that's hard is if it ends with an out or run at the plate, then I had to make it clear that ending in a tie, if the game was tied at the end, that's a loss.
Yeah.
This was hard, because if it had to be the thing, because like if we didn't establish that, then if Terry had been called up in the plate, the game is not over. The game keeps going. I had to make it clear that the game. I'm just saying all of this because I need to make it very clear how hard this was to manufacture a baseball movie that had to end with this very, very, very specific way so that all the character objectives could be met.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it all comes together very smoothly. It feels like, yeah, all the rules of the game come together in a way that dovetails with the character arcs. I think if it's missing anything, it's the Crypt Keeper on commentary, as Vera suggested.
That would be fun. The Crypt Keeper on commentary would, like, if we were going to go, because originally my thought was the tone of this thing. At first, I was thinking this is Looney Tunes, this is Space Jam.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, maybe it's Tales of the Crypt, maybe it's EC Comics, maybe it's my way of doing like, oh, let me do the kind of, if you were given this premise, what would you have done in terms of the tone? And then I think I just ended up overcorrecting into trying to be sincere. I think I just made it a little bit. That first act is just too much like a normal movie.
Yeah.
And other than that, I guess it seems like, and you got tell me if I'm on base here, ha 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 ha. But it seems like really that's mainly the part of the movie that's got to get revised.
I think Act 1 doesn't set the correct tone.
Mm-hmm.
You settle into the tone. Like I said, once Mike Feist appears, you find that nice balance between sincerity and comedy. I think Act 1, among many jobs that an Act 1 has, is also to set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, the tone of Act 1 is different than the rest of the movie. Maybe in line with the end of Act 3, but not in a way that actually helps Act 3.
Yeah.
I think comedy is the great lubricant for emotional storytelling.
We all love to call it that. We all love to call it the great lubricant.
The great lube. The Uber lube, if you will.
If you will. Is that the one that you've endorsed on the show?
Yes, I publicly endorse Uber lube.
Yeah, on the Cat People episode on Kill Your Darlings.
Yes.
Dalton makes sure, let's cut the check.
Also, if you're a runner, you can put it on your thighs, and it helps moisturize and keep you from chafing. Anyway, comedy is a great lubricant for emotional storytelling because it disarms your audience. I think that's why it works for horror. I think it works for sincerity and drama as well. But I think, especially for all the reasons we discussed earlier, I think a little bit more of a lighter tone helps this one fit.
Then I'll tell you who, in retrospect, I'm going to choose as the director of this movie. James Gunn.
James Gunn.
We've never used James Gunn.
Yeah.
I feel like if we're going to try and mash up the absurd with the campy and have it have a really strong heart, that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
that's Guardians Volume 3 to a T.
Can James Gunn be kept to a PG is the question.
Maybe. It might be. He might find it an interesting challenge. And also, he's got kids, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, all right, so here's the thing that I forgot to mention, which I think is kind of important. One of my goals here is to finally make an episode of this show that my mother would enjoy.
Ah, yes.
I'm going to send this one to her. I pitched it to her already. She will listen to it.
There we go.
And so hopefully I have met that goal. So maybe James Gunn will be like, here's one for the kids.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's
this one's for
a
Mom.
good pick.
Ma, hope you loved it.
I think that's a good pick. I think James Gunn would fit this well, and I think this one works. I like it all comes together there at the end. I think just smoothing out the start, and now the stage is set.
Holy shit! It's
our finale.
It's so fucking weird to be here. Holy shit! Our next pitch, is the finale of everything that we've built so far.
Yeah, now we do need time to write it.
Yes.
So here's what's going to happen. We would normally do a recap episode, but there's really not anything to recap.
Yeah,
because
so nothing that's happened since the last recap episode is likely, unless we do anything that really surprises ourselves, unless we get Smokey and the Bandit up in here, which is not even in one of the episodes.
Yeah.
Smokey and the Bandit is my favorite pitch of Phase 4, and we never actually wrote it. I like it more than Mystery Men. The movie that I have in my head for our Smokey and the Bandit is I'm desperate to see it. I'm desperate to see that movie.
I don't go that far, but we won't. We will not be seeing it in Hell on Earth, most likely. Although we haven't written it yet, so who knows? But in 2 weeks, we're going to be back with a guest pitch. We don't know who yet. I'm going to email someone as soon as we're done here. Then we're probably going to have a little run of guest pitches here, just a couple. We have a really nice one. We have a returning champion coming soon, who I think you all will be really happy to see.
But that's not the next episode.
Not the next one.
We're not going to release that yet because we don't want to undercut whoever the person we have coming
in
up
a month, though, we're going to have a returning champ pitching us a few ideas, is my understanding. And then I'm guessing in 2 months.
Yeah, probably
2 months
4
from
weeks.
today.
Sorry, 8 weeks.
8 weeks from today. we are going to have Dark Universe Hell on Earth. Keep an eye on our socials. We'll keep you updated if that changes. I don't think, hopefully it shouldn't have to go farther back than that.
Right. We want to nail it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this is the finale of everything we've been doing since we started this podcast.
We'll keep, my intention is for the main feed to still always on our schedule have stuff to listen to, guest episodes that we're recording. If we need to, I'll throw a bonus up there. We will not keep you waiting any longer than we have to.
Yeah.
But we bet the whole farm on this.
Yeah,
right?
We got to tape the planning episode.
We fucking plowed under our cornfield and we built hell.
Yeah.
And just also, I really do regret, and maybe now in this new version I could do it, not having the exchange. Is this hell? No, it's Iowa. I really wanted to do it.
That should be.
I would have put it in any tone of the movie, but I never found a place for it. But if things are a little wackier, I would have found a place for it. Anyway, that's on the poster. It's not hell. It's Iowa.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. So that's it for solo pitches from us.
Fucking hell.
We've done all of our solo pitches for the Death's Door saga. By the way, the podcast isn't ending after Hell on Earth.
We have really exciting
so
plans. We have so much. We are way more prepared for the beginning of our next saga than we were for the beginning of this one.
Yes.
We have learned so much from this process, and I am so excited. I am so excited to begin a new story with you, with all the things that we've learned. Starting with from a much higher standard and with a better idea of what we want to do.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. But first things first, Hell on Earth. Hell's a-coming.
Every third act needs a third act.
And this is the third act of our third fucking act.
Yes.
Holy shit.
We love you all. Thank you for being with us on this journey.
Hang on, we have to acknowledge our patrons.
Let's acknowledge our patrons.
Want to say a special thank you to our executive producers. These are folks who signed up at the $15 a month levels. They buy themselves a little shout out on everything we record while they're a producer. Thank you to Brian Egan, Brent Dreyer, Mar Bendlar, Matt Thackeray, Mike Lee Whiplash, and Soonmot. And a big round of applause for our studio executives. These are folks who have signed up at the $25 a month level right now. They get to not only get the shout out, but they get to pick one of our movies that we do for studio mandates on the bonus pod. Thank you to Alyssa Beerus, Bill French, Jonathan Morgantini, Joel Valiant, Moose, The Real Nick Morton, Rich Mays, Sabrina, and Tom Webster. We really appreciate your support. And I guess with all that said, until next time, stay afraid of the dark universe. We'll see you in hell.